Hello, and I welcome you all to today's meeting on GST amendments by CA Jayesh Gogri. We had one session with him at Kohinoor in August, which could not be completed fully due to paucity of time, and he has agreed to take the further amendments here today. And I welcome you, sir. I would now like to invite our core group member CA Rahul Daga for giving the formal introduction of today's speaker. Over to you, Rahul.
Good evening, everyone. As such, Jayesh sir does not need any introduction, but still as a protocol, who I would briefly and very quickly introduce him. CA Jayesh Morarji Gogri is practicing from the past 2 decades, and he's a leading consultant in India, practicing in the areas of taxes, customs and FMT, real estate laws, finance and business startups. He's currently practicing as a director of GST In Time Services Private Limited, and he served various national and international clients in the fields of consultancy, execution, litigation, and reviews. He's as far as the professional contribution is concerned, he's written various articles and he's a regular contributor to various articles in Bombay Chartered Accountants General, the magazines and newspapers. He's also co-authored WIRC and BCA references. He's also co-authored the background material on GST by ICAI and also the yearly budget publications. He's spoken and delivered lectures to more than 1 lakh persons across India at 100+ forums, including the IIM, ICAI, CBIC, ICSI. He's also a NACEN accredited trainer. He's also a special invitee member to the ICI Indirect Tax Committee for the period 2016 to 2018. He's a core group member of the Bombay Chartered Accountants Society. With this brief introduction, we again welcome you all. Welcome Jayesh bhai to our session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Purvi ji and Mr. Daga. It is really a wonderful opportunity to interact with participants of JB Nagar CP Study Circle. Or in August, we had that wonderful program, and I was really amazed the kind of interaction with the audience, etc. I mean, it was quite interactive. So when Jayesh bhai, the other Jayesh bhai of yours, JB Nagar's Jayesh bhai Thakkar, when he requested once again that can we have one more session, so I said Neki or Puch Puch. So itna अच्छा opportunity आप लोगों से फिर से एक बार interact करने के लिए, तो obviously it's going to be a very wonderful opportunity. So are we all ready? तो कुछ मैं कुछ जो ये वीडियो यूट्यूबर्स वगैरह जो करते हैं ना, थोड़ी सी वो ट्रिक्स भी यूज करूंगा. यस नो करिए या ऐसा कुछ. So you guys can at least be active in that manner so that I can come to know that हाँ आप लोग सुन रहे हैं, सो नहीं गए. So thank you once again JB Nagar CP Study Circle for giving me this wonderful opportunity.
Jayesh, one thing, will you be taking the queries simultaneously? Yeah, you want somebody to compile?
I would prefer, I mean, see, if these queries are directly relevant to our discussion at hand, then we can take it up. Otherwise, I would recommend that if we can allot last 15 minutes, then that would be great.
Okay, so I would request all the participants to please park your queries in the chat box, and will be taken up by the speaker if he sees that it is relevant for the topic. Otherwise, we'll take it up at the end. Thank you.
Yeah. So in that sense, like, thank you. So like we will take up, there are like too many slides. Even on that day, we discussed that there are like more than 200+ slides. So a slideshow itself is quite big. But anyways, we have got 3 hours in our hand. So we'll try to finish off the initial presentation, maybe within 2.5 hours. And last 25 to 30 minutes, we can keep it for Q&A. And we'll have some in between also, like if the time permits and if something is relevant, we can take it up. So is my PPT visible to all of you?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. So yes, no wala trick, whether you are using chat box or not. I am unable to see chat. Huh? So whether you're
not able to see the chat?
Not yet. No. Oh, 1 second.
Let me write something. Are you able to see the chat?
Yes, now I can see. Okay. So except you, nobody has said. Huh? People. So I'll begin only when have started that you are all ready. So type ready. Then only we'll begin.
Yes, sir. Ready, sir.
Ready? Acha, to likhna nahi hai? Okay. Now people have started writing. Good. Good. So these are, though I am titling as recent amendments, but this, please bear in mind that today we are sitting on 14 September. So this all amendments may be pertaining to last couple of months. Okay, so some amendments which would have come in July, some in August, and some probably in September also, latest one. And then there are few judgments which are also relevant for discussion, which would have come in near future. So, near past. So then we will discuss about those very important judicial pronouncements as well. So how are we structuring today's discussion? So first of all, there are like certain amendments in either laws or rules. Then there are certain clarifications which have been issued by CBIC. Then there are certain changes in rates. And then there are certain recent judgments. So we'll take up rates at the end and connected issues. And all the other three things we'll take one by one. So this is just like a broad structure, but there could be like little bit jumping here and there. Maybe we can discuss rules, and then sometimes in between some clarifications which are important, we'll discuss it out there and then. So first one is the transfer of balance in electronic cash ledger. Now you all are aware that if, say, for example, and we can start with one case study itself so that it's easier for us to understand. Now, Cash Crunch Limited has two GST registrations. Now, as the name suggests, it is always in Crunch, Cash Crunch, and it has got two registrations. One is in Maharashtra and other one is in Gujarat. Now, there is an accountant called Miss Goofup, and sorry, this is not Sunshine, but it's a Cash Crunch only. And she was asked to deposit rupees 50,000 rupees in, so there is one goof up in the case study itself. So 50,000 rupees she was supposed to deposit in the cash ledger of Maharashtra state. There was a liability which was to be paid off from Maharashtra. So she was supposed to pay 50,000 in CGST and 50,000 in SGST. Now, however, if you see that typically what happens that whenever you are picking up those registrations, only change because it's PAN-based number. So only the initial two digits, they may look little different. If Maharashtra is having 27, probably Gujarat will have 24. So this Ms. Goofup was not so aware, and she picked up GST registration of Gujarat, and she paid 50,000 in Gujarat GST registration. Now the question is that whether what would be the recourse available to Goofup, because she is working for Cash Crunch and that company does not have the enough funds. Now, what is the recourse available to Ms. Goofup? Now, previously, if you were aware that whenever like one used to deposit something in cash ledger, it was not permitted to transfer to any other head. So say, for example, if something you have deposited under IGST head, and subsequently you found out that there is no liability in IGST, but actually liability is in CNS, CGST, SGST. Not so. What was recourse available? That the form which never came up, Form 3, was supposed to have one column for claiming refund of cash ledger. And if you fill up any number and say, for example, your cash ledger has that much balance, in the next period, you were supposed to be issued with the refund. That was the planned structure. But as we are all aware that 3 never came up, 3B, which was supposed to be a very temporary stopgap arrangement, that became permanent. And in 3B, there is no mechanism to that to claim the refund of cash ledger immediately. So people were forced to file the RFD 01 or 01A, whatever. And then that route used to take a lot of time. Now government realized this mistake, that this is something which is very wrong. And then they permitted, they made a change in the this is section 49, subsection 10, which was introduced, which stated that a registered person may, on the common portal, transfer any amount of tax, interest, penalty, fee, or any other amount which is available in the electronic cash ledger to the electronic cash ledger for integrated tax, CGST, SGST, etc. Okay. And it has to be within the same cash, same registration. Then it was permitted. Okay. Now this permission also came little later. It was not available initially. Now the question here is that this was the case when this was like only for the same GSTN number. If we see the case in our scenario, it is there are two different registrations. One is Gujarat and another one is Maharashtra. Now, whatever has been paid is in Gujarat, whereas the liability was supposed to be paid in Maharashtra. Now, the question is, can she transfer from Gujarat to Maharashtra? Now, that's why we need to look at the amendment which has come up. This is the amendment. Now, this amendment, as you can see, it is effective from 5th July 2022. Now, if we look at the amendment carefully, 4910, and then it is like divided into A and B. Now, B says that integrated tax or central tax of a distinct person as specified in subsection 4 or 5 of 25. Now, that distinct person, you all may be aware, that means like having the same PAN number, but having different registration, maybe in the same state or another state. Okay. In the same state also, you can have more than one registrations for different premises. It is at your, I would say, choice, at option. But for different states, one will have to obtain separate registrations. So now, post 5th July 2022, one can transfer the IGST element or CGST element, okay, from one state, from one state to another state. So first of all, within the same registration, yes, you can transfer to any head. But if you want to transfer from one state to another, that is one GSTN number of yourself to another GSTN number, then you can transfer only IGST and CGST. Now, again, the question here would be that, okay, maybe that 50,000 CGST element, one can transfer from the Gujarat to Maharashtra. What will happen to the SGST amount which has been deposited in the Gujarat number? So any idea or suggestion on that day that you can type down? Huh? Thank you, Mahesh Bagaria ji, and thank you, everyone. So anybody who would like to put some suggestion that is there any way out, that how can Miss Gufa be like help if she is coming to you for consultation, and if you want to help her, that okay, there is some amount which is lying in the Gujarat SGST, which she wants to transfer to Maharashtra SGST. Okay, that Gujarat CGST to Maharashtra CGST is permissible. And when Gujarat IGST to Maharashtra IGST is permissible. But what is not permissible, if you can see, is that you can only transfer to IGST or CGST, not anywhere else. So any idea on that day? Navratan ji had came up with some good idea. I'll share that what could be the way out in such a case. So Mr. Mangulkar is suggesting something, that SGST to CGST. So the idea is this, that say if you are like having some balance in Gujarat in SGST, so first of all you can transfer to the CGST of Gujarat. Once it is there in the CGST of Gujarat, which is now instead of 50,000, it will become 1 lakh. So now that entire CGST of Gujarat can be transferred to CGST of Maharashtra. Once you have got in CGST of Maharashtra, again, you can transfer from CGST to SGST, because within state, there is no restriction. So that is how one can like pass an appropriate entry, and one can go through this hurdle. So so this is the like solution which we have discussed. Okay, normally it is not permissible, but then like maybe via transferring to the same state first, CGST, and then you can transfer to the another state. Now, of course, there could be like, why should I go through all these pains, etc. There could be issues that why should I do this jugglery? If say this idea doesn't click to my mind, then why, when I'm depositing some cash in my ledger, we all may agree that are we entitled to any kind of concession? That say, for example, you have got a liability of 1 crore. In one particular month, you have got a liability of 1 crore in a particular registration. Now you are deposited in your cash ledger 1 crore 10 lakhs. Not only 1 crore. You have deposited 1 crore 10 lakhs. Is it considered as payment of tax and discharge of tax? Or is it something else which is required to be done? You all may agree that it is not simply by way of depositing of cash ledger. You also need to file a hello. You also need to file 3B. I think somebody else has also started. Unless you file 3B, the amount of cash ledger will not be considered as a payment of tax because it has not been appropriated. Now, in that case, what is there? What is lying in the cash ledger? Isn't it something like my bank balance? If it is not considered as tax, then it is what else? It is merely a deposit by me. Then how can you have some restrictions to utilize my deposit? If it is my deposit, I can use it freely, maybe within the same state for any other head or subhead, or maybe for any other state. Why should I have any kind of restriction that I cannot use for SGST of another state? Ultimately, it is not tax. So I would say this is though a welcome amendment which has come from 5th July, but I would say that it should be like freely available. The way they have restricted, it should not be restricted because there is no similar amendment in the SGST Act. So therefore, like though this is a good amendment, but still though it helps, I would say helps your temporary like blockage of capital gets restricted because you need not file any refund, etc. Simply you can transfer to CGST, but still it is not freely available. So to that extent, I would say still the amendment, one more amendment may be required. Now, similar issue is there. Say, for example, you have claimed some credit. You have fulfilled all the conditions of 16 or whichever now additional conditions under 38 or whatever conditions are put across. You have fulfilled all these conditions. Okay, 2A, 2B, everything is matching, and then it is lying in your credit ledger. Say, for example, again, in this case, you have got a credit of 1 crore 10 lakhs rupees. Okay. And you have got a liability of say 20 lakhs rupees. And for example, if you have not paid this 20 lakhs using this credit ledger, you have not filed your 3B. Because if you remember in the previous times, we used to have in the excise regime credit ledger, rather the personal ledger account. So once you deposit in personal ledger account, also there used to be some RG23B part 1, part 2, and then you have the Senvet credit account somewhere parked, and then you pass a debit entry in your books or in those ledgers, then only it was considered as payment made by you, simply because you have accumulated credits that was not sufficient. Now the question is, say for example, if I have forgotten by any chance that I have not passed any debit entry in that Senvet ledger or ITC ledger, what was the consequence? Previously, there was something like, okay, you were liable to pay interest because you have not paid the actual, you have not paid the taxes, you have not passed debit entry. And later on, it was amendment made was in Senvet credit law that unless like you are having that kind of utilization should not be a problem. It won't be considered as non-payment, etc. And there should not be any kind of tax. Something similar when the subsumation of taxes happened, actually it should have happened in the GST law also. But if you see the way it has been structured, now let's take an example of Happy Singh. He has taken credit of 2 lakhs rupees. He was happy when he took, but later on when he realized that this is all credit pertaining to section 17(5), maybe your food and beverages or motor cars or whatever, there are some block credits which were there, which he was not supposed to take. Okay. Now, uh, what was the good thing about this Happy Singh was that he has never utilized this 2 lakhs rupees ever. Okay. He has just simply availed and put it in his credit ledger. Then he was served with a notice and asking for that reversal of credit because this was not available and he should have reversed. And then he was also asked to pay interest at the rate of 18% and also a penalty of 20,000 rupees. Okay. Now Happy Singh becomes unhappy now because first of all, that 2 lakhs rupees which he has claimed is merely lying in his books of accounts. So his question is whether, first of all, should he be liable to pay penalty? Should he be liable to pay interest? So what would be your answer? Let's look at this section 53. The way it reads, this talking about interest. Okay, let's talk about interest first. It says a taxable person who makes an undue or excess claim. Mind well, the word which is underlined is claim. So even if you are making claim which is undue or excess, okay, beyond your actual entitlement, if you are claiming something, then you are liable to pay interest. That is the simple section 53, what it used to say. Now you may say this is unfair because even prior to the introduction of GST law, this was taken care of. And then why this kind of change? Okay. And friends, let me tell you that many times we come across some situations which were problematic in service tax regime or VAT regime or excise regime, and they were settled in that regime. Okay, those regimes, they were already settled. Some judgment would have come, some circular would have come. And now, maybe because of clumsy drafting of the GST law, I would simply say clumsy drafting, because at various places, जो हम लोग बोलते हैं ना, कोई सिर और पैर का कोई मेल मिलाप ही नहीं है. सिर किसी का लगा दिया है, बॉडी किसी का है, नीचे पैर किसी के लगा दिए हैं, तो मतलब अलग अलग डिफरेंट लॉस में से जो उठा, जो खराब दिखा वो इधर डाल दिया. ऐसा है. Whatever was worse, that has been picked up and pasted over in the GST law. So in that case, is GST law, and then you might have heard also some departmental officers saying that वो सब तो पुराना अभी गया, ये तो नया लॉ है. हाँ, सर्विस टैक्स लॉ वो सब पुराना गया, सर्विस टैक्स लॉ में ऐसा जजमेंट होगा, इधर तो जीएसटी लॉ में है क्या जजमेंट? And then you will say that, okay, sir, GST में तो नहीं है, but it was already settled in the VAT regime or excise regime, whatever. The question is, and this is very important, is GST a new law or is it subsummation of previous laws? अगर जो previous law का subsummation है, तो वही 3 लॉ या 4 लॉ, जितने भी लॉज थे वो सारे मिलके अगर जो एक बना है, तो it is simply like carry forward of all this previous whatever wisdom which we have acquired, तो वो carry forward हो जाता है. लेकिन अगर कोई बोलता है कि नहीं नहीं ये तो उसके साथ कोई कनेक्शन नहीं, ये तो पूरा नया ही लॉ है, then of course like you have to reinvent the whole wheel, कि whether all those situations which were examined, upheld, discussed or clarified, they are all nonsense now and you have to think afresh. Now friends, in multiple cases it has been held that CGST or whatever GST law is nothing but subsummation of previous laws. It is not a new law. So certain clarifications which were issued by CBIC or maybe certain judgments which were delivered by various judicial fora, all those things are still valid. It is not that wo juna bhul jao. Okay, they are still valid. In that context, again, this could be a pain point that law itself has been drafted in a clumsy manner to say that undue or excess claim. तो claim तो मैंने कर दिया, तभी तो happy था मैं, happy सिंह था. जब पता चला कि भाई ये नहीं claim करना चाहिए था, तो मैं ready भी हूँ वो reverse करने के लिए. और reverse करने के time पे, am I supposed to pay interest which credit which I have never utilized in my life? 2 लाख रुपया वैसे ही पड़ा था. Answer to this, looking at this amendment, was yes, because the law itself reads like that. In the previous regime, the law was amended to say that what is stated now. The wordings in the previous law, which were amended, was that availed and utilized. Previously, it was availed or utilized. I'm talking about the previous regimes. And then it was made or ko utha ke and badal diya. Unless you avail, as well as utilize both, then only you are liable to pay interest. Otherwise, no. So in case of Happy Singh, what would be your answer? After the amendment, and you need to answer, तो पता चले कि भाई हम लोग सब एक ही पेज पे हैं और आप लोग सुन रहे हैं. Is Mr. Happy Singh liable to pay interest after this amendment? Amendment जो हो गया उसके बाद, now amendment says where the input tax credit has been wrongly availed and utilized. So let me check. Okay, Akshay Topiwala says no. Praful Chandra says no. Kranti Jain says no. Sagudra Merchant says no. तो बाकी वाले लोग क्या कर रहे हैं? Are they confused? या उनको लगता है हैप्पी सिंह को क्यों हैप्पी होने दे, उसको तो इंटरेस्ट भरवा के ही छोड़ेंगे. So how many people from the department over here? नहीं, तो डिपार्टमेंट से भी नहीं है और यस भी नहीं है. Okay, maybe some politicians. Okay, जवाब भी नहीं देते. Yes or no? So now there will be, like many of you would have answered that it is not liable, because unless he utilizes, in case of Happy Singh, he has simply claimed 2 lakhs rupees, he has not utilized. So post amendment, we are sure that there won't be any kind of liability of interest. Okay. Now the question would be, what about the, and then there is the detailed manner of calculating interest also. So the point which I was telling, that if at all there is some credit which is lying, and if you are utilizing that for payment, though you have not filed 3B, still the rule 88B, the way it has been amended, it says that ultimately it won't be liable to interest. So if something is there in your cash credit ledger में आपका पड़ा है अमाउंट 1 करोड़ 10 लाख रुपया और 20 लाख रुपए का आपका लायबिलिटी है, 3B भरने का रह गया है, 3B में रिफ्लेक्शन होने का रह गया है. Okay, still 88B makes it clear, since that amount is very much with the department, so simply because you have not done the past debit entry or whatever, you have not filed 3B, that doesn't mean that you have not paid taxes. Okay, so at least you won't be liable to pay interest to that extent. That's what in a nutshell 88B talks about. The point is about penalty. Now, if you typically read the penalty provisions, okay. So interest in nutshell, all these situations put together says the same thing, that whatever is available in your credit ledger, okay, to that extent it is considered as paid, you need not pay interest. Only whatever you are liable to pay through cash ledger, only that much interest you need to pay. Okay, and if something was to be reversed, again for which credit ledger was already there with sufficient balance throughout the period, no issue. But if in certain period, if the credit ledger balance has gone down, then you need to take care of that interest portion and you need to pay interest on that. Now let's talk about the penalty, whether Happy Singh would be liable to pay penalty or not. Let's look at the penalty provisions. Now section 122 says takes or utilizes. Amendment section 50 में क्या हुआ है? Availed and utilized. Here it says that either he takes or utilizes. Again, यहाँ पर अगर जो आप देखेंगे तो word and नहीं है और है. तो either he takes or utilizes, in both these scenarios he is liable to pay penalty. Now this is very surprising. In the case of Happy Singh, when the 2 lakhs rupees which he has taken, which he has availed, but he has not utilized, there won't be any interest because of that amendment in section 50. But if you look at typically this section 122, which deals with the penalty, it says you will be liable to pay penalty. Now, is it unfair? Isn't it unfair? Let me find an answer to this. That say, for example, if you feel that agar jo interest nahi legta hai, to how can there be a case where like somebody is liable to pay penalty? Correct? When you have got adequate balance in your credit ledger, you have not utilized it at all. Only you are simply by mistake you have taken, which you are reversing. Then in that case, will there be any penalties? So looking at section 122 or maybe even 132B, which deals with various prosecution related provisions, it says availment or utilization. Okay, takes or utilizes. Okay, so here is some relief which we can look at, and that's section 73. Now, first of all, if anything is due, okay, maybe tax, maybe interest, maybe penalties, whatever, ultimately there has to be some so cause notice which needs to be issued. Without so cause notice, there cannot be any kind of recovery. Okay, maybe pertaining to tax or penalties or interest or whatever. Okay, if you can see here that requiring to so cause as to why he should not pay the amount specified in the notice, along with interest payable thereon and a penalty leviable. So for tax amount or maybe refund which has been granted erroneously, and interest thereon, and even penalty thereafter, all three elements should be put in the so cause notice, and then only any officer can proceed. Now, that is 73.1. But when we reach 73.5 says that one can pay before this issuance of so cause notice, he can pay tax along with interest payable, okay, on the basis of his own ascertainment. Or maybe say, for example, if somebody points out, if it is been ascertained by the proper officer, and then he can also he can pay off, and then he can inform to the officer that I have made the payment. So what he has made payment of? Tax and interest, no penalties. When he is ascertaining on his own, or maybe if proper officer is telling him that this is the amount payable, okay, before issuance of so cause notice, then he can pay tax and interest, no penalties. He can pay and inform. If he does so, what is there thereafter? If you look at this 73.6, subsection 6, the proper officer on receipt of such information, okay, when he is writing that Happy Singh would write to the officer, on receipt of such information, shall not serve any notice under subsection 1. So effectively what has happened? That one has paid only tax and interest. Okay, in this case, interest is 0 because it is not applicable. So he has paid taxes. Then he has informed to the officer that I have paid off requisite taxes. Then the officer cannot issue any so cause notice. And once an officer cannot issue any so cause notice, the effect is he cannot levy any penalty. Because as we discussed in the previous slide, that in order to issue, in order to levy any kind of tax, interest or penalty, one must issue a so cause notice. So since under 73.6 and similar provisions are there in 74.5.6 also, where like there is a case of fraudulent availment, etc., etc. So in such cases, like he cannot issue any kind of so cause notice at all. Okay. So in that case, there won't be any penalty at all. Okay. Effectively, that's the effect, that ultimately Happy Singh would be liable to only reverse that 2 lakhs rupees, no interest payable. And since so cause notice cannot be served, but you need to ensure that he informs to the officer. He must inform. Again, though it's like portal ka jamana, it's all, everything is online, but still one cannot take a claim that वो आपको तो दिखता ही होगा ना, why should I inform? आपके पास तो पोर्टल का एक्सेस है ना, तो उसमें दिख ही जाएगा कि भाई मैंने क्या किया है, रिवर्स कर दिया है, भर दिया है वगैरह. So that may not help probably. In order to fit into this 73.5 and 6, one should inform. एक चिट्ठी तो लिख देना चाहिए, एक email तो डाल देना चाहिए कि भाई this has been paid off along with interest, which could be 0, and therefore then he cannot issue any so cause notice and no penalties. So this is about the interest. Interesting, right? Extension of time limit for issuance of so cause notice or claiming the refund claims. Friends, you all must be aware कि हम लोग 2 साल तो ऐसे ही बड़े हो गए. मतलब 2 साल तो हमने जिया ही नहीं, ऐसा लगा. बीच में जो कोविड पीरियड था, as if like time passed like anything. Okay, and then various activities, all those activities were stopped, and then like we were helpless, and we were not probably doing a lot of things which we used to do in normal period. So obviously Supreme Court has taken that cognizance, and then they have suo motu passed some order whereby they have stated that any proceedings or anything, like if at all you were to claim refund or you were to file any reply or any officer was supposed to issue start a proceeding, etc., there would be like a concession of roughly around 2 years. Okay, they passed an order like that, that that period will be excluded altogether. Now, government has come up with specific provisions. Okay, they have made a specific amendment in the law. Now, what is the amendment which they have made? That normally, say for example, if it is like a normal case where it is not like mens rea or mala fide intention wala case, so within 3 years, the officer should have issued the so-called notice, or like they should have like done the recovered the amount. Okay, he should have like passed an order within 3 years from the date of filing of your annual return, or maybe like the whatever due date. And then after 3 years, they cannot come up. They cannot demand anything unless they allege. And normally you would have seen that normally they allege that by mistake you are like a chore. आपने सब कुछ गलती जानबूझ के ही किया है. There was a mens rea, mala fide intentions were present. Though they may not justify, but they will like write one line and they will say that, okay, you had a mala fide intention and therefore we are invoking 5 years ka period. But let's presume that there is the officer is fair and he's invoking section 73, not 74. That means non-mens rea. So then the normal period is 3 years, which has been now extended till 30th September 2023. So now these 3 years, if you see, normally people would have filed their annual return by 5th or 7th February 2020. Because for 17-18, the dates were continuously getting extended. Okay. And lastly, the last most extended date was 7th February 2020. If we start counting 3 years from that, then again, it would be like February 23, which could be the normal period for raising any demand, which is under section 73. That means not mens rea case, non-mala fide cases. Instead of February 23, Supreme Court has granted the extension of say roughly 7 months or 8 months, I would say. Okay, roughly 8 months, and that would get over by 30th September 23. So this is by the amendment. Okay, though Supreme Court would have given a different order. Now there could be fight also that whether that order would prevail or this would prevail. Officer may take recourse of that amendment also. Okay, whereas this is the law. Okay, which says that ultimately before 30th September 23, you need to pass an order. Now mind well, friends, you all would have noticed this difference. In the service tax regime, there was a time limit to issue a so-called notice. Okay, it was not talking about order. So once he has issued within that time frame of notice, within that time frame of 3 years or 5 years, the job was done. Then he may take another 5 years to pass an order. Okay, so effectively, like you, the sword can keep on hanging on you for 5 years, not 5 years, 10 years. Whereas in this case, they say that law is very clear. They must pass an order within 3 or 5 years. They simply cannot issue so-called notice and leave the things in lurch. So they have to pass an order under section 73 before 30th September 23. That's the effective amendment. However, for issuance of order for recovery of erroneous refund, okay, they have said that this period of 2 years altogether should be excluded. Okay, for raising a so-called notice, time limit is only up to 30th September 23. But for issuance of order for recovery of erroneous refund, they are saying that entire period of 2 years will be excluded. So they will get 2 years more, not merely 8 months, like what we saw just now, okay, in the previous case. And for filing refund application also, if you were to file a refund application, and there is some deadline which is coming between 1st March 2020 to 20th February 2022, you can exclude that entire period up to 20th February 2022, and you can start afresh your period from 1st March 2022. Okay, so that's how like you can claim, you can pending refund claims, you can claim within that 2 years. So I hope the things are clear till now, correct? Any doubts so far? So you may put down in the chat if the things are clear. You can say simply clear, or if you got some doubts, you may ask. So Sagar Baluji says department shall do amendments in all the interconnected sections. Hopefully that you are talking about interest and penalty in the Happy Singh's case. Ideally, they should do. Sagar Baluji, you're, quite positive about the department. Yes, I'm also quite hopeful. They should do. Otherwise, anyways, also like we have got the recourse of section 73 and 6. If at all they don't do and simply they so, देखो 122 में तो लिखा है or, it is not and. So then we have got provisions 73, 5 and 6 that okay, they cannot issue a so cause notice if I have paid with interest and I have intimated to them. So about time, are you all clear? I think people are not clear. Hello, everybody. And if you have got any doubt till then, very good. So Amar Shukla is responding, Praful Chandra ji is responding, Om Prakash ji is responding. So at least इतने लोग तो जाग रहे हैं. हाँ, बाकी का पता नहीं, but at least इतने लोग तो जाग रहे हैं जो clear हैं. If at all you got some doubt, you can put it in chat box, or I don't know what is the mechanism. Maybe Q&A ka box hoga to Q&A, but you can put it in chat. Okay. So let's move ahead in the next topic. So this is the impact. Revocation of suspension of registration. Now, there are like two different words which are being used. One is cancellation and one is suspension. So let's see that first of all, what is the amendment which they have done? Okay. Now, they have inserted one proviso in Rule 21A, which deals with suspension, etc. That they say that provided further that where the registration has been suspended, okay, for whatever contraventions, etc., etc., the suspension of registration shall be deemed to be revoked upon furnishing of all the pending. Now, पहले क्या होता था? Like say for whatever reasons you are unable to file your return, for whatever reasons, and reason could be as petty as that your accountant was out of the station and you were not aware, a portal was not working properly, utility was not working, for any damn reason. And if you see now the kind of provisions they have made, if you are not filing your GSTR1, you won't be permitted to file your 3B. If you are not filing 3B, then next month ka GSTR1 will not be permitted. And again, so it will be like a cascading kind of effect. Say for example, yeah, Rajesh Joshi ji, you can put yourself on mute unless specific question. Yeah, Rajesh Joshi ji, you can put yourself on mute, please.
Right.
So, earlier, say for example, for whatever reasons you are unable to file your return, and as I was mentioning that sometimes return could not be filed, your 3B could not be filed because you didn't have adequate money. So take an example, there was a liability of say 20 lakhs rupees. There was some credit balance which was available, say 10 lakhs rupees, and 10 lakhs rupees you were supposed to pay in cash. You could arrange almost 9 lakh rupees, but for 1 lakh rupees, there was no arrangement. You paid 19 lakhs rupees. So though you are paid almost 90%, 95% of your liability, still you won't be permitted to upload your return because you are not paid that balance 1 lakh rupees, which could be merely 5% of your total tax liability. And once you're not done, then subsequent returns will not get filed. So unless you arrange for that 1 lakh rupees, and if that takes more time, then say previous provisions were like, okay, up to 6 months, if you are unable to file your returns, your registration was getting cancelled. And then you may arrange for the funds, you may pay up taxes, then you file your returns. And obviously, once you don't have registration, you will have to go and ask them that you please allow me to file my returns, or you take this physical returns. And then after satisfying themselves, like they were reopening, they were like again reinstating registration. Okay. Now, what they are saying that you did not approach the officer. Simply, if you have filed your returns after suspension, okay, for whatever pending returns they are period, all those returns you file, and then automatically it will be restored. Now, I'm not sure whether this feature which they are talking about in Rule 21A, the amended one, whether that has been made really effective on the GST portal or not. But yes, at least on the paper, they have made this provision. So one can go and approach them that abhi maine return file kar diya hai, you please revoke my suspension. So revocation of suspension means your registration is now again in place. Okay. So you can very well go ahead with your regular returns and everything. Now, this is again a good welcome provision that you need not approach the officer and then again wait for him to get satisfied. And then sometimes like once you go there, they used to come up with different demands. Okay, वो credit ledger बताओ, हम लोग को देखना पड़ेगा तुमने credit कैसे लिया है, bring those invoices, this, that. So they were not merely looking after the filing of returns. They were going beyond. They were like getting into the chair of scrutiny. Okay, that okay, whether the things have been taken properly or not. And it used to take a hell lot of time. And you know that without registration, almost a person's business gets stuck. So this is a good amendment, but still, this is only for revocation of suspension. If the registration has been cancelled altogether, if it has been cancelled, then again, they have not made any provision. If it has been cancelled, which is more frequent than even suspension, they like right, left, and center, they are using this power and they are cancelling. So if that cancellation takes place, then again you have to go with the returns, convince him that everything is now in order. You please revoke my cancellation. Now, let's take one case study around this area. Okay. Now this continuous period of 6 months, which I was mentioning, that 6 months can be like now different period also that they are likely to come up with. They have amended the law, but they have not mentioned that what is going to be that period instead of 6 months. Is it going to be more than 6 months, less than 6 months? I'm sure the way GST law gets amended, it will be less than 6 months henceforth. But they have not yet come up with any notification. As of now, it is 6 months. Now the question is, what if my GST registration is suspended on 1st January 22 and it has been revoked? Suspension has been revoked again on 20th January. So 27 दिन के लिए मेरा registration was in a suspension. Now the question is, can I claim ITC for the goods or services which are procured during this period of 27 days? The question is, 27 days के लिए मेरा suspension हो गया था, मैंने returns नहीं भरे थे जो भी वजह से. Now I have done everything. Now it has been revoked. It is now registration is effective. The question is, if at all I have purchased some goods or services for which I have got the invoices from 1st January to 27 January, will I be able to claim ITC? So, JB Nagar GST stalwarts, what would be your answer? Will I be able to claim ITC? Yes or no? Okay, Mithyesh Kothari ji has asked some question. I'll respond to that. But tab tak Rumit Maru ji ne bataya hai, yes, he can claim credit. Okay. Vaibhav ji bol rahe hain, nahi mil payega. Amar Shukla ji bol rahe hain, yes. Oh, supplier won't be able to upload and suspended GSTN. Rohit Sindhe ji bata rahe hain. Okay. Hitesh Talesharia ji bol rahe hain, no. Okay. Okay. So there is like a mixed answer that some people are saying that yes, it will be available. Some people are saying no, that person won't be able to upload returns itself. Now, of course, let's try to find out the answer. So answer would be, it's not so clear cut, but I'm just trying to figure out. This is again revocation of cancellation of registration. So we need to deal with the scenario of, as of now, suspension, and then we can have the same question for even suspension, the registration or cancellation of registration. Okay, so let's talk about this suspension first. Now, whether suspension and cancellation, would you consider at the same footing or they are different? obviously you will feel that they are different, because cancellation is much severe than suspension. Suspension means it's like in coma, okay, ventilator pe hai, but at least सांसें चल रही है, okay, and cancellation is like, okay, almost you send that person to heavenly abode. So suspension may be considered a little different footing than cancellation. And then I would say during the suspension, first let's talk about legal angles and then we'll talk about GST portal. Because see, first of all, we have got the GST law, then we have got the circular ka law, rather rules ka law, then we have got circulars ka law. Circular में भी जो नहीं हो पाया वो comes through FAQs. FAQ में जो नहीं हो पाता है that comes through Twitter handle. Okay, Twitter handle में नहीं होता है कुछ तो press release. Okay, तो ये डिफरेंट लॉ, और ये सारे लॉ के अलावा और एक सुपर लॉ है विच इज पोर्टल का लॉ. आप लॉ इधर कुछ भी लिखो, आपका 73 क्या बोल रहा है, अगर वी आर नॉट कंसर्न, दे हैव मेड देयर ओन लॉजिक, ओके, एंड यू ऑलरेडी नो दैट लॉ एंड लॉजिक डू नॉट गो टुगेदर. सो जीएसटी पोर्टल इज अ सॉफ्टवेयर कंपनी दैट गोज विद लॉजिक, ओके, लॉ डजंट हैव लॉजिक, ओके, एंड समटाइम्स वी फील that neither of them have got law nor have logic. Both are illogical as well as somewhere going beyond law. So we'll talk about portal little later. Let's talk about the legal angle first. My suspension doesn't mean that my registration was cancelled. It doesn't mean that it did not exist at all. I would say with due considered balanced view and scenario of the law, that suspension means that, okay, it was maybe under abeyance, okay, it was just put aside, but whatever credits occurred during that period, okay, I was a registered person during that period of time also, okay, it is not the case that I was not a registered person to claim ITC, and therefore I should be eligible to claim ITC, okay, this is the legal answer, because my registration has not been cancelled altogether. Now the question, portal को कैसे tackle करें? अब as long as this particular scenario is concerned, 27 January तक ये खेल खत्म हो गया, मतलब 27 दिन within a particular month. तो आपका जब भी वो बंदा जो आपका सप्लायर होगा वो रिटर्न्स अपना डिटेल्स जब सबमिट करना चालू करेगा, he will start uploading maybe from February onwards. GSTR 1 जब फाइल करेगा तो वो फरवरी के फर्स्ट वीक में करेगा, या मे बी 8-9-10 वो तारीख में करेगा, तो तब तक आपका वापस अगेन इन प्लेस आ गया है, तो दैट पर्सन वुडंट फेस एनी इश्यूज. से फॉर एग्जांपल ज्यादा टाइम के लिए सस्पेंशन चला गया तो क्या होगा? देन अगेन आई वुड से दैट वन शुड क्लेम इट, ओके, मे बी वन कैन आस्क दैट पर्सन, ओके, अगेन जो जिसका सस्पेंशन हो गया है, दैट पर्सन may claim in 3B, and then if there is any mismatch notice etc comes, he may go and explain, because there could be like n number of issues for which you may come across that 2A 2A and your 3B claims are not matching etc, and then many times like you have got some explainable reasons, and once you go and explain, it is eligible to you. So that is about suspension. Now take the same scenario for cancellation. What happens if the registration is cancelled altogether? For the same case, 1st January 22 को registration cancelled हो गया, उसके बाद 27 दिन के अंदर you did all this jugglery, filing of returns, you convinced that officer, he revoked the cancellation, and now you have got the registration back again on 28 January. Now in this case, I would request all the audience to offer your opinion that what would you feel? Is it something liable? I mean, whether I'll be able to claim credit or not. What would be your answer? Whether credit would be available? Yes or no? People can simply write yes or no. Okay, मर्चेंट जी बता रहे हैं यस, हितेश जी बता रहे हैं नो, सिंह साहब, अनीता राज सिंह साहब जी बोल रहे हैं नो. ओके, सो अगेन वी हैव गॉट 1 yes and 2 no's. Okay. Anybody else who would like to give offer their opinion? Yes, provided restored retrospectively. Amar Shuklaji is saying that, okay, if it is restored retrospectively, then yes. Okay. So let's come to the answer. Okay. What could be the answer? आप बोल रहे हैं कि सर प्रेजेंटेशन तो आपका है, स्पीकर आप हैं, तो आंसर हम लोग क्यों दें? अब बाकी की जो भी 3-4 लोग जो जवाब दे रहे हैं उनके अलावा बाकी का सबका यही है क्या कि जयेश जी आप ही बता दीजिए आंसर क्या है? ओके, एनीवेज इट्स योर सेशन. मितेश इज सेइंग यस. सो यस टू व्हाट? कि भाई शुड आई आंसर? ओके. सो revocation of cancellation. In that case, I would say revocation always happens with retrospective effect. Cancellation, once it gets revoked, that means it is reinstated. Revoke का मतलब हो गया जो cancellation था वो cancel हो गया, जो cancellation था वो cancel हो गया. So therefore, there is no cancellation anymore. Okay. So even though for 27 days, it was almost like somebody has gone in the heavenly abode, now it has been brought back, okay, by the Yamraj again कि भाई हाँ अभी और कुछ इधर भुगतना बाकी है आपको, तो आ जाओ वापस GST में. Okay. So in that case again it is putting a person back to the same situation. It is putting back to the same situation as if there was no cancellation. Revocation का मतलब ही ये होता है कि भाई cancellation नहीं रहा. So in that case again my legal answer would be yes. In that case, one can take the credits even for the intervening period. And in that scenario, again, the portal would put a hurdle and then like you will have to deal with that portal ka scenario. Okay, maybe like file your 3B and then if query comes, you offer your answer. So let's move ahead to the next aspect. Okay. So ITC, these are all sub questions we have answered. ITC reversal for duty credit scripts. Now, you all are aware that if some items which are not liable to GST, and if there is any common credit, what are you supposed to do for that common credit? You will have to identify that what are those non-taxable output and taxable outputs, and proportionately to the non-taxable output, you will have to reverse the common credits, correct? Now, if you all are aware, duty credit scripts like your road tap, SEIS, MEIS, if to all available to exporters, these scripts which are there, okay, that export promotion scripts, all these scripts are generally liable to nil rate of tax duty, nil rate of GST. Okay, in that case, since it is liable to nil rate of GST, therefore there will be common reversal. But now they have made an amendment, okay, which is in the rule. Okay, they have said that the value of supply of duty scripts specified in the notification, okay, 35/17 prescribes that will not be considered for the ITC reversal. Okay, so this is effective from 5th July. From 5th July onwards, one need not reverse the ITC, common ITC in respect of duty credit scripts, though they do not attract any kind of GST, but no credit reversal. So this is again a welcome provision. To that extent, exporters would be able to claim more ITC. Okay, and of course the value of scripts would be very minuscule. It as again the complete turnover, they won't even be, say for example, if somebody is 100% exporter, still the value of duty scripts may not go beyond 5% in most of the cases. Maximum cases, maximum it can go up to 5%, but at least to that extent of 5%, one would have the additional ITC, common ITC. Recredit of refund paid back. So say for example, somebody has claimed refund claim, okay, and while refund claim, you all must be aware that you are supposed to reverse your credit ledger. Say for example, credit ledger में आपका 50 लाख रुपए का ITC पड़ा है, you are filing a refund claim of say for example 25 lakh rupees. तो पहले आपको credit ledger में reverse उसका entry मारना है 25 lakhs rupees का, and then only you can go for that refund of 25 lakh rupees. Say for example that 25 lakhs rupees का refund got processed smoothly, which is very difficult. But say for example, आपका नसीब अच्छा था, स्मूथली प्रोसेस हो गया, 25 लाख रुपीज आपके अकाउंट में आ गए. ओके, you got the credit of 25 lakh rupees. Now what happens, as you know that refunds cannot come smoothly. Okay, तो आ गया गलती से आपके पास, and then some officer figures out, ओहो ये तो erroneous refund आपको चला गया, ये तो विदाउट वेरिफिकेशन, और इसमें तो आपको देना ही नहीं था वो रिफंड, फिर भी चला गया आपको. And then he issues a so cause notice and then passes an order that you are ordered to pay back that amount. आपने वो अमाउंट पे भी कर दिया, आप भी शरीफ थे तो आपने भी अमाउंट पे कर दिया, और चारा भी नहीं था शरीफ बनने के अलावा. ओके, अदरवाइज दे कैन इवन डेबिट योर कैश लेजर, दे हैव गॉट ऑल द मैकेनिज्म, करेक्ट. सो you have paid back that amount of erroneous refund which that officer said. Now what should happen in that case? See, 50 लाख रुपया आपके क्रेडिट लेजर में पड़ा था, 25 लाख रुपया came back to you as a refund which you are again paid back. Don't you think that 25 lakh rupees should come back again in your credit ledger? चलो रिफंड ना मिला ना सही, बट अल्टीमेटली क्रेडिट लेजर में तो वापस आना चाहिए. प्रेज्यूमिंग इट वाज अ एलिजिबल क्रेडिट, प्रेज्यूमिंग कि भाई क्रेडिट एलिजिबल था, सिर्फ रिफंड गलती से आपको दिया था, बट क्रेडिट वाज एलिजिबल. नाउ एज ऑफ नाउ, आई मीन टिल डेट देयर वाज नो सच प्रोविजन, and then like you have to pass through a big rigmarole and they will show you the provisions कि भाई हमारे पास तो पावर नहीं है वगैरह वगैरह वगैरह. Now luckily we have got rule 86 getting amended. Okay, now it says that in such a case, like the officer will pass an order, GST PMT 03A. Okay, and through that order, again that amount which was erroneously granted, you paid back along with interest and everything. Then that amount will be brought back to your credit ledger. Okay, through that order. So again you will get that amount at least in your credit ledger. भले हाथ में refund नहीं आया, but at least you will continue enjoying that credit. So that is again a good provision. So there is some clarification also issued to that extent. Additional payment modes. Now, earlier days, you must be aware that whenever there were raids by the department, okay, whenever there was like investigation branch ka visit hota tha, anti-evasion.
Do it on a paper. Hey, no.
Yeah, Lakshmi madam, can you please unmute yourself? Sorry. So madam was saying no. So no raids. I mean, even we wish that no raids are there. Okay. So say for example, there were raids, okay, by the anti-evasion or DGGI or whoever, whichever authority. And there was like two things invariably these authorities used to take. One will be your papers and documents and diaries and all that stuff. That is one thing. And second thing, you know what that could be, which anti-evasion authority, when they come, invariably they will take this one particular thing with you, whether they take papers or not. Any answer from the audience? कि क्या लेके जाते थे? नहीं पता है. They used to take your PDCs, okay, post-dated checks for tax collection, okay, PDCs या event dated checks also. कि हम लोग इतने लोग आए, इतना तो आपको भरना ही पड़ेगा, इतना डिमांड तो आपको भरना ही पड़ेगा, नहीं तो हम लोग जाएंगे नहीं. हाँ, many people used to face that kind of scene, that हम लोग जाएंगे नहीं यहाँ से जब तक आप हमको चेक इतने अमाउंट का नहीं देते हो. We will have to deposit that amount, okay. Then subsequently whatever you want to do, you can fight, but as of now, and हमारा विजिट हुआ है तो आपको टैक्स तो भरना ही पड़ेगा. Now in GST law, there's altogether a contrary provision. What is that provision? You cannot pay by check, even if you wish that you want to pay off all your taxes on 1st of every month. जैसे ही आपका ये सितंबर मंथ खत्म होगा, 1 अक्टूबर को आप रेडी हो जाएंगे गांधी जयंती के दिन, और उसके पहले ये चेक लेके कि भाई मुझे भरना है टैक्स with your check. But mind well, as of now, you cannot pay tax more than 10,000 rupees by way of check. Okay. You can go to the counter of bank and then you can, over the counter, you can pay up. But that is like, okay, maximum up to 10,000 rupees per one challan, not beyond that. So compulsorily, like one will have to have the internet, one will have to have computer, one will have to have knowledge of usage of this portal, and then he has to use the net banking facility only, and no other. I mean, there were like internet banking and some credit cards, NEFT, and over the counter, as I said, only up to 10,000 rupees was allowed. Now they have made two more payment modes allowed. Okay, they have allowed, they have permitted. First of all is that UPI, which GPay and Paytm, etc., which we keep doing. That is like one method which is allowed. And then IMPS, which is like immediately through your banking app, you can transfer immediately. So these are like two more modes of payments which they have allowed. So now you need not have the internet banking. Sometimes UPI is much faster. Even IMPS is much faster because within few clicks, 2-3 clicks, you can simply pay it off. So this is again a welcome move, okay, but not a really great one, but it's okay. Inverted duty structure. Now they have first of all inserted some section, and then there is one more provision pertaining to ITC, this inverted duty structure. First of all, they have amended the law. Friends, you all must be aware that there was a Supreme Court comment that the kind of formula was like this, that though Rule 54, Section 54, which deals with refunds, it was not saying anything about whether you can claim refund of input services or not. But the way formula operated, which was through rule, okay, section was elaborate. Section was, I would say, more lenient, okay, more open. But rule was making it very stricter, very confined. What was the rule? It was saying that you cannot claim refund in respect of input services. Okay, for capital goods also there was restriction. And they said input services also you cannot claim any kind of refund. Okay. And then what used to happen? It was like, though sometimes, say for example, if you have got input services more, okay, then your refund, and I'm talking about inverted tax structure. That means, what do you mean by inverted tax structure? Your inputs are coming at the rate of 18%, whereas your output is going at the rate of 5% or 12%. So obviously, when things come at 18% and they go as 5%, there will be a lot of accumulation of ITC. And therefore, this refund was granted. This was only in GST regime. No other regimes previously granted this kind of refunds. So it was allowed. But it restricted only to the extent of inputs. No refund for input services was ever granted. So what is the repercussion of that? All those people who were into inverted tax structure, they were like getting stuck with a lot of credits in ITC ledger. So therefore, the Supreme Court made a comment that GST Council should come up with an amended formula. And now this formula has been amended. Now you can see the magenta color portion, the new portion which has been added, that net ITC divided by ITC availed on inputs and input services. So that has been added to the formula. Now, of course, you can put figures and then try to work out. We have given one example, by way of example, so it's easier to understand. So turnover of inverted rated supply was 6,000, net ITC on goods was 1,000, and net ITC on services was 200 rupees. So total ITC was 1,200. Now, if you see a total turnover, you can see that it is out of total turnover, inverted tax structure is 6,000. So if you see 60% of your turnover was pertaining to inverted tax structure. In this case, say for example, your GST liability on that 5,000. So there could be, say for example, some this is net. So your it is 10,000 ka 5%. It should be like 500 rupees. Sorry, there is some error. So consider the total turnover as 10,000 rupees, and then there will be GST liability of 500 rupees. Now, with whatever previous formula, your entitlement for credit for the refund was 350 rupees. Okay. when this magenta color portion was not added in the previous formula. Now, if you see with the current turnover, now current formula, it would be 392. So effectively, like one is getting 42 rupees more, okay, out of this services ka 200 rupees. So it is not that entire services ka 200 rupees is going in waste. Somebody is able to claim out of that, and to some extent, say 42 rupees. So at least in the given scenario, I would say there is some additional element which could be roughly around, say, 12%. So in many cases, it will go up. But still, it is not that, okay, for ITC related services, you park it separately. For inputs, you claim refund completely. That sort of formula they have not come up with. They have done some jugglery, but at least still it is better than what it used to be in the past. So that's the amendment. It's again a good one. There is one more point which I want to say, that this entire amendment, the circular notification, which like they have, circular they have amended, it is talking about like if your tax structure, say for example, when you procured inputs, your input and output were at the same rate, both at 18%. But subsequently, when you sold goods, you procured goods, say for example, on 15 September 2022. So on that date, your input and output both were attracting the same rate, but you simply procured those goods. And now in 15th October 2022, you are selling those goods. When you were selling those goods, the 18% became 12%. So now actually, when you are making a sell, there is an inverted tax structure. When you purchase, there was no inverted tax structure. But when you are making sell, there is a inverted tax structure. But if you see, there are two different points of time. One is 15 September, another one is 15 October. So this circular, in nutshell, it is trying to say that in such cases, you won't get any refund. Only if at the stage of purchases, that differential tax structure existed. So inward 18%, outward 12 or 5. Then only you are eligible for refund. Otherwise, you are not eligible for refund under the inverted tax structure if they are at different points of time. Now, again, if you see, section does not say anything about that. Only it is the circular which is like making the amendment. Okay, they have amended the circular, and by through that they are trying to say it won't be allowed. So, what do you say, that whether the circular would prevail or section would prevail? Obviously, section would prevail, but in order to get justice, one will have to go beyond at least commissioner appeal. Then only one can expect justice. Maybe at times, like there are some good officers who can grant you justice. They may not give recognition to circular because it is going against the law. So this is how there's the provision which they have come up with. So on one side they have made a good provision by changing the formula, okay, whereby one is able to get more refund. And the other hand, they have said that if they are existing on a different points of time, that refund will not be available. This is provision section 54. It doesn't talk about any kind of point of taxes, point of time, etc. It simply says that it will be allowed. Duty-free shops. So you all would have seen this duty-free shops when you visit any airport. Okay, and there will be some duty-free shops. And then there was some discussion at council that anyways duty-free shops should be considered at par with normal exporters. So if duty-free shop sitting in India, if they are selling to foreigners, ultimately their foreigner is going to take those goods to his own country. Okay. So therefore, effectively, though the duty-free shop himself is not taking those products out of India. Okay. But through these foreign tourists, ultimately goods are getting shipped out of India, getting consumed out of India. So therefore, council say that it is almost equivalent to export, zero-rated supply, and therefore they will make a suitable amendment in the act. Okay. Now, so therefore they say there is no need of circular and rule, etc. Simply we'll make the amendment in the law itself. So what has happened? They have omitted rule 95A because it's not required now. Okay. When you have got the section available, what is the need of rule? And obviously, when you don't need rule also, then where is the need of any circular? Now, rule has been omitted, circular has been omitted, but surprisingly, the act has not been amended to include duty-free shops as an exporter. So their situation has become worse than past. Previously, at least through rule or circular, they were entitled to claim that as exports, claim refund of GST or whatever. But now they don't have anything. They have come back at par with normal traders. So we hope that there is some amendment which will come, and that would be retrospective one, so that this duty-free shops do not face any issue. But as of now, neither there is section to exempt them, nor there is any rule or circular to provide them any help. So this is how our GST law is getting developed. Date of refund application. Normally, there are two methods of filing refund applications. One is that LUT wala method, where like you claim the refund of ITC. You don't pay taxes at the stage of exports, and you claim whatever on your inward side, whatever is there, you claim refund. There is another method there you pay taxes on your export side, maybe utilizing your ITC or whatever, and then claim back that amount. Okay. And in such a case, in case of goods, it was mentioned that your refund application, there was no refund application required at all. The copy of the shipping bill itself was considered as refund application. And the refund application, they would proceed basis the shipping bill copy, which anyways you will file, and automatically refund would come to you without any much hurdle. Now they have made an amendment that, say for example, your GSTR 1, which is talking about all your sales, including exports, and your shipping bills, both details do not match. Then they would say that your date of refund application for granting refund, or say there are like maximum time period of 2 years is available. So in the previous case, that I was never supposed to bother about that 2 years, because the moment I've done exports, automatically shipping bill will go and automatically refund application would be considered to be filed. So it will be like within, I would say, 2 days or 2 weeks maximum. Now they say that if your GSTR 1 details and your shipping bill details, because GSTR 1 also contains shipping bill details. So both details, if they don't match, then your date of application of refund will not be considered from the date of filing of only shipping bill. You have to first of all rectify both the details. Okay. Maybe whatever means. Once you have rectified all these details, then only it will be considered that you have filed your refund application. So the period of 2 years will start, that 2 years will be counted from your date of making the rectification. And in any case, of course, I would say that in most of the cases, that rectification, etc., will not take that much time, 2 years. But if somebody is like lazy or whatever, for whatever reasons, if they are unable to rectify, and by that time, if 2 years are over from the date of export, then your eligibility to claim refund can be at risk. Then people will say that it is already time barred and therefore you're not entitled. Okay. And then you may have to fight and whatever. But unless you knock the doors of courts, nothing is going to happen. So one will have to remember, if you are an exporter doing export on payment of taxes basis, if you're exporter of goods, then you should be aware of this provision. So that's rule 96, which we talked about. Now, there are some amendments in GSTR 3B also. Okay. So what are those amendments in 3B? Of course, by now you would have already filed one 3B. So to some extent, you would be already, sorry, that July, yeah, this is like July. So you would have already filed one 3B by now. So now what are the amendments? First of all, there are certain details to be mentioned by the e-commerce operator. Okay. So e-commerce operator, where he's like acting as a aggregator kind of a person, then like he has to furnish certain details. Same way, even the supplier who is supplying through this e-commerce operator, even he needs to fill up all these details. So this is like one more requirement for e-com operators as well as vendors. Now there's like one more thing. Disclosure will be required, and for that, like they have CBIC has advised, okay, they have advised what, to furnish details in 3.2, that in the requisite format, that out of like place of supply wise, you give the details, total taxable value and IGST element, and then to like you provide further bifurcation, that how many to unregistered persons, how many to how much sales is to composite taxable persons, and how much is supplied to UNI holders. So one will have to give this bifurcation. Now, friends, again, though it's 3.2, which people probably would be ignoring, or they tend to ignore, but now there is a advice by CBIC to fill up these details. The question is, am I supposed to follow advice of CBIC? Okay, of course, it is the apex administrative body as far as the indirect taxes are concerned, central indirect taxes are concerned. It's an apex body, Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs. But then, being a taxpayer, am I supposed to follow the advice of CBIC? Say, for example, forget about advice. They have instructed taxpayers. Okay, can they issue an instruction? Now, if we look at the section 168, which gives the powers to issue instructions or directions, let's read this. The board, that is CBIC, may, if it considers necessary or expedient so to do, for the purpose of uniformity in the implementation of Act, issue such orders, instructions, or directions to the central tax officers as it may deem. So to whom they can issue any instruction? To their central tax officers, not to any taxpayer. At the max, yes, through some provisions, the instructions which are issued to the central officers, CGST officers, are equally applicable to SGST officers. Because when SGST officer is like doing something, passing any order or raising some collection, he'll be doing for both CGST, SGST. So anyways, he is also exercising the powers under the Central GST Act. And therefore, CBIC instructions are also equally applicable to them. And nowadays, like there is one more order also, judicial pronouncement is there, which says that all the states should give adequate instructions to their officers that they must follow the orders of CBIC, including that of document identification number, DIN number, and all that stuff. So that is the judicial order. But in no case the CBIC can give any advice or any instruction to taxpayer there. Voluntarily, of course, one can fill up. There's no harm in that. Now there is one more amendment in like table 4. Okay, and what is the amendment? That one will have to provide details of Rule 38, that is dealing with that banking car reversal, 50% car reversal, which is required. Okay, and then also section 17.5 car reversal, if at all you are doing, you must mention in this 4B1. Okay, previously it was requiring 42, 43, and then others. So in others you can put. Now they specifically require, okay, all 32, 43, 43, all 3 rules, and also section 17.5 details you provide over here. Okay, 4B1. And then whatever is left over, you put it in others. Another thing, they have made also that other disclosure details. Okay, the ITC which are like reclaim, which was reversed under rule 4B2, the above item 4B2, which is others. Okay, and then ineligible ITC under section 16.4 and ITC restricted due to POS provision. Now 16.4 is like beyond a time limit, you cannot claim the credit. So you need to disclose all those details separately. And then if, say, for example, some hotel bills of different state, you don't have registration, then because they will charge CNS of that state, you won't be able to claim ITC. So even that POS based not eligibility, that will have to be shown over here. So there is some additional disclosure requirements. I'm not going into nitty-gritty that what will happen because of that, etc. But yeah, this is going to now make certain things more clearer. Okay, and then certain people who are doing little bit of adjustments, etc., etc., they'll be like more opened up because of some disclosure. Okay, of course, still there are like ways and means, but at least to some extent they are trying to plug the loophole. Now they have come up with various clarifications. Okay, various clarifications CPIC has come up with, and friends, like before we go to this particular angle, which is a new topic, it is 5:26. So would you like to have maybe 5 to 10 minutes ka break, and then can we assemble at 5:35 again, so that we can have a gap of 10 minutes, and after 10 minutes we can assemble again, because we have got another 1 hour 25 minutes roughly session going to go. Okay, so we can go for a break for 10 minutes, and we'll assemble once again 5:35. Is that fine, Dagaji, Purviji?
Hello.
Yeah, we can take a break of 10 minutes, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Sure, sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. So we'll reassemble at 5:35. Thank you.
Okay. All the participants are requested to assemble back in 10 minutes. Thank you. So welcome back.
Yeah. So we can begin.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So coming back to the another amendment, though this is not by actually amendment, this is a circular, a clarification which has been issued by the CBIC. So if you see, typically, normally the world over, people buy and sell goods, but in India, people buy and sell invoices. So, and there is like a lot of drive which has been taken by the department, and thousands of crores have been like, they have held up, they have collected. Now, what happens typically? Say, for example, in this case study, Mr. Chor is selling invoice to Mr. Thief, okay, without actual supply of goods. So what happens typically, that in the market, there are some people who simply sell goods. They don't provide invoices. There are some people who only supply invoices. They don't supply goods. And there is a combination of both. And in many cases, people may try to avoid GST. They may, to have more credit, ITC, they may simply buy these invoices. So say Mr. Chor is supplying such kind of fake invoice to Mr. Thief. And then Thief is providing consultancy service to Mr. Innocent, which is like a real consultancy bill which Mr. Innocent has procured from Mr. Thief. Now, what has happened in this case? The circular which clarifies that Mr. Chor, whatever like they have supplied, it is like no supply at all. There's no supply involved. So if at all Mr. Chor has not paid any kind of taxes, you should not go after him because he has not made any supply at all. Then what will happen? You should catch hold of Mr. Thief because he has availed ITC fraudulently. Without procurement of goods, he has simply availed the ITC, and therefore he should be at fault. And then not only Mr. Thief, since like that ITC was fraudulent, therefore that would tantamount to non-payment of taxes for his supplies. Okay. Say for example, Mr. Thief is supplying worth rupees 10 lakhs. And he has also procured, managed the invoices of 10 lakhs rupees from Mr. Chor. So obviously to that extent, he will claim full credit and he'll show that I don't have to pay anything because whatever is ITC, that is my equivalent amount of output liability. In that case, Mr. Innocent, who has genuinely purchased services or goods, whatever, from Mr. Thief, he has genuinely paid all the amounts of taxes, etc., etc. He has genuinely claimed all these ITC. Because Mr. Thief has effectively not paid taxes, Mr. Innocent can be in trouble. Okay. Now, previously, now this circular is exempting Mr. Chor. It is catching hold of Mr. Thief, but it is not giving any kind of, I would say, immunity or any kind of protection to Mr. Innocent. Mr. Chor is totally out. Previously, without this circular, what used to happen? The department used to run after Mr. Chor, collect taxes from him, and then department will go after Mr. Thief and they will make him pay taxes also. Okay, that because he has fraudulently availed ITC. And Mr. Innocent probably like was not much trouble. Now, because of this circular, in fact, Mr. Chor is getting relieved completely and he'll be just penalized few thousand rupees. Okay, Mr. Thief could be in trouble. Okay, unless Mr. Thief pays completely, then again Mr. Innocent can say that, okay, ultimately taxes have been paid by Mr. Thief. But if Mr. Thief is absconding, if he's no more available, then there is no immunity which is granted to Mr. Innocent. Maybe even prior to circular also, he was bit at risk. I mean, absolutely at risk if Mr. Thief is not available, not paying taxes. And even now also, Mr. Innocent is still in trouble, but at least there is relief to Mr. Chor because circular says there is no supply to that extent. It's only an invoice. And without supply, there cannot be any taxes. So this is in nutshell, I would say, the clarification which has come up. It says, as the transaction does not fall within the scope of supply, there is no supply from Mr. Chor to Thief. Mr. Thief can be like, okay, asked to pay taxes, but if he's really thief, he will not be available in the market. He will be just, he will be vanishing. So innocent will always keep saying that why innocent people are getting punished. And this is the typical scenario which is happening in the GST regime, which was not there in the excise. Excise, it was there to some extent, but in service tax, it was not there at all. So now to that extent, the GST law is more, I would say, harsh as compared to the service tax law, that one need to prove even the genuineness of the supplier, which is not even in the hands of course, there are some judgments of Madras High Court and all that stuff is there, but it's still difficult. So judgments are not really granting a clear-cut benefit. There are like various penalties which can be levied. Okay. There are some penalties which have not been mentioned in the circular, but then still those penalties can be levied. But effectively, Mr. Innocent in the GST regime is not protected even after this circular, which is considered to be a beneficial one. It's not granting immunity to the actual suffering person who has not done any mischief. Yeah, one more question could be like, if there are like multiple penalties, one for wrongful availment of taxes, maybe one for having goods without invoice or violation of rules, etc. Can there be multiple penalties? So the answer appears that if you look at 7513, where any penalty is imposed under section 73 or 74, no penalty for the same act or omission shall be imposed on the same person under any other provision of this act. So once something is like proposed under 73 or 74, then there cannot be multiple penalties. And there is also a doctrine of double jeopardy, which is by the Karnataka High Court in the case of Motor World. So the court is also holding the same concept. And we have got the Article 20 of Constitution of India, that no person shall be prosecuted and punished for the same offense more than once. So to that extent, one can say that, okay, for the single offense, there cannot be multiple penalties, though there could be multiple clauses of section 122 or even 132 for prosecution, multiple provisions where you may feel that, okay, you are fitting into both these provisions or all three provisions. Still, there will be only one penalty maximum. Then deemed exporters. The persons who are supplying to export-oriented units, okay, or maybe some EPCG script holders, okay. There are like some 3-4 kind of people. If you are supplying to them, then you are called as a deemed exporter. In that scenario, the question is whether ITC can be claimed in respect of those 17.5 block credits or maybe some proportionate reversal wala credits, etc. So the circular is clarifying that in such a case, refund would be available to deemed exporter, even though normally section 17.5 or section 17 in general deals with certain block credits, that these credits are not allowed, okay, pertaining to construction or various things are there. But then the circular says, no. See, this deemed exporters are on a different footing. If you look at the
no problem.
ITC available by recipient of deemed export supply is not as per terms of the provisions of ITC. Therefore, such ITC will not be a part of net ITC, okay, for your reversals. And therefore, you will be, if you are like a deemed exporter, you will be able to claim the full credit, even though for normal people, it is blocked. But you being a deemed exporter, the circular says, no, it will be granted. Now, what is the fun, you know? The actual exporters, they are not enjoying all these things. For actual exporters, there is no such kind of clarification. Only for deemed exporters, they have issued this kind of clarification. So in net, actually 17 section 70 related ITC can be actually blocked for actual normal domestic traders, even actual exporters. But if you are a deemed exporter, you will be eligible to claim credit, which is very surprising, although it's good for deemed exporter. So there is nothing to be cribbed about. This is the provision, section 17.5, and I'm not going into the. There's one more clarification which has come in this, which is like subsequent to the AR. One, normally advanced ruling, we call it as adverse rulings, but there are some advanced rulings which are really good. And recently, in the recent past, Maharashtra AR authority has given quite a good amount of good advanced rulings. Now, of course, it depends upon the officer to officer. Now we have to see with the change scenario what happens. But yes, in the recent past, we have got some good judgments, good advanced ruling authorities. So what used to happen that, okay, that canteen related supplies, if there is a canteen which is like put up by the factory or one GST registered person, which is supplying food at a concessional rate to employees. The question was, is there any kind of supply which is made by employer to employee, and therefore should employer pay GST, should charge GST on that? So previously, like we have this, as I mentioned, MCure Pharmaceutical Advanced Ruling Authority, which said no, it won't be applicable, and it is not a supply. Okay. Now the same tune is being like played by this circular. It says that it is in lieu of services provided by employee to employer, and it is because of in relation to his employment. Therefore, the services which are given by employee to employer, they are anyways part of Schedule 3. But in response to that, if like somebody is providing any perquisite, not only canteen, anything which is in response to that employment contract, maybe you grant some software-driven car, maybe you give him furnished home, all these things which are by way of in relation to his employment, all those things also will not be liable to be taxed. That's what the circular is trying to say. So this is again a very welcome kind of provision, clarification. So many companies who would have paid taxes, or probably who are paying taxes on canteen services or various perquisite given to employees, so now they can reconsider having regard to this circular. Now there could be one very important point. You must be aware there was some good circular which was talking about discount, and it was really good circular, which said that if somebody is giving you discount, then say for example there is a 10% discount, you paid 90%. Will that be any reversal of ITC to the extent of 10%, because that amount is never paid? And circular said no, still since you have paid 90%, whatever was payable you have paid, therefore you will be able to claim ITC on the whole 100%. No need to reverse to the extent of 10%. That was the circular. Then sometime later, department, for whatever reasons, they realized that okay, this circular is not to be issued, and they withdrew that circular. They withdrawn that circular. So now the question is, if something was clarified and now that clarification is no more available on the portal, okay, it has been removed, what will be the impact of that? I would say that once you have clarified something, okay, so first of all, there was doubt, and normally every circular will start that in clarification, I mean, to clarify the doubts, etc. They will issue some clarification. Okay. So doubts were clarified. Then you cannot put me under doubtful situation once again. That okay, no, that doubt which I have removed was actually not, itself is doubtful. Therefore, I am like putting you back to the doubt. So I'm removing the clarification. I would say at the max, instructions can be withdrawn, okay, which are in the nature of direction, which are in the nature of instruction. But the circulars which are clarificatory in nature, which are clarifications, whether withdrawn or not, I would say once they are issued, they will always have force. They will always have force, even though after withdrawal. Because once you are, like I was not sure in this dark room that whether this is remote control or my mobile phone, and then you switched on the light. So I could make out, oh, this is not phone. I cannot phone from them. This is just a remote control of AC. So I need to pick up this phone. And then you switch off the light. Will there be any confusion again? Once I realize that this is phone, this is remote, there won't be any confusion thereafter. So I would say clarificatory circular would have the same impact, whether they withdraw or they continue with the same circular. I would say once clarification given, if it is beneficial to you, one can always take benefit of that this was the clarification given by the department. Maybe for one glimpse, okay, for few seconds, they put on the light and then they again switched off the light. But still, during that light, whatever I could see, that was the clarification. So I would say this kind of good circulars, you should print, put it in frame, okay? So tomorrow, even if they get withdrawn, you don't have any issue. You can say that, okay, I still rely upon this clarification, which I've read, which is issued by CBIC after due consultation with their tax research unit and whatever, you know, that process. They have got the TRU cell and anyways, we have got this MQ Tata Motors, which is Gujarat AR. Okay. Then utilization of amount in credit ledger. Whether certain taxes, this is like again a point, like whether one can pay deposit of appeals or can one use for RCM based liabilities to utilize the items in the electronic credit ledger, some balance which is there. Can one utilize it for payment of liability under RCM or even pre-deposit? For RCM, there are like clear-cut provisions which says that output tax, it can be used only for output tax. Okay. And output tax has been defined to exclude any tax payable which is by him on reverse charge basis. So since this RCM is not output tax, therefore it cannot be utilized. For pre-deposit, there are some judgments, maybe of Orissa High Court, which is in against some tribunal judgment favorable. Then again, another tribunal judgment not in favor. One will have to wait for that time. But of course, portal does not prohibit. Portal in this case, like permits you to pay pre-deposit out of your credit ledger. But otherwise, Gujarat High Court is putting a restriction. Sorry, Orissa High Court in case of Jyoti construction. Okay. So this is Jyoti construction. Liquidated damages. There's one more clarification which has been issued, that whenever you are liable to pay penalties, whenever you are liable to pay liquidated damages or cancellation charges, are you liable to pay tax? Now, in most of the cases, they are saying liquidated damages are not in nature of supply. There was no agreement to provide liquidated damages, to breach the law, breach the contract. Okay. So therefore, the supply is not of making a breach of the contract. It is a normal supply, but there would be some condition that if you are not able to fulfill this supply related conditions, then what would be the penalties? Okay. So this is in line with a tribunal judgment in the case of Repco Finance, that whenever bank charges you for check bouncing or delayed payment, so then the question was, is it something liable to GST? And the tribunal came up with an answer that bank is not there to provide check bouncing charges and check bouncing facility, etc., or late payment facilities. They are there to provide you banking services. Just to debar you from making any faults, they will put a condition. So the tribunal differentiated the condition to the contract from the consideration of the contract. So condition cannot be equated with consideration. Consideration is different, and condition, which may be to deter you from making any faults, is different. Same tune is like taken up in this circular. In most of the places, they are saying that liquidated damages and all that stuff will not be considered as supply. However, there is in the whole big circular, maybe running to maybe various pages, at least I would say more, almost dozen of pages. There is one para 7.1.6, which goes in an exactly different direction than the whole circular. So entire circular is of the view that, okay, you are providing services. If somebody defaults and if you are penalizing him, that is not a service given by you to him. Okay, it's just a condition. And therefore, you should not levy GST. However, at one place, they are saying that if there is cancellation of your hotel booking, cancellation of tickets, then they say it is like, oh, it's provision of service because he has to find another customer, and then this is a service to take care of his pains, and therefore it should be considered as supply of service and should be taxed. Okay, let's say forfeiture of salary, that is notice pay. Okay, if somebody is not serving any notice, so then like if there is some deductions or charges to him, that employee, even that is considered as like not a supply. Okay, but not collecting toll charges, then late payment or surcharge or fee, they are saying that yes, this is supply and that it will take color of principal supply. If principal supply is taxable, you pay tax. And fixed capacity charges also, they are saying it's a supply, you should take color of the principal supply, which is as of now exempt, so therefore exempt, but otherwise it is a supply. Cancellation charges, this is 7.1.6. Transportation services, if there is ticket cancellation, they say it is a supply. Okay, and therefore it should be taxed. Okay. So one need to read this 7.1.6 very carefully. Apart from that, the whole circular is very much on a beneficial side. So one can take benefits of that. If at all somebody has deducted taxes, paid for this notice pay, liquidated damages and all that stuff, if at all, if one has paid in recent past, then that can be claimed as a refund. Because this circular has come today, I mean on 5th July. So within 2 years from 5th July, one can proceed for refund. This is very important kind of a circular. So that's why I said that like you should take a printout and keep it in a frame proper and put it somewhere at a prominent place. It's a good circular, except that one para. Transitional credit, you all are aware that though the 5 years are over, we are celebrating the 5 years of GST. It just got over 2 months ago. And that's how we got this entire family of clarifications and notifications and all that stuff. Okay. As if within the 5 years, amendments were not enough. Yeah, but then many amendments, the clarification are on a better side, though amendments may not be. We'll talk about those rate changes, but many good changes have come. One of which is this, that the Philco trade, there was the judgment by the court that ultimately there are many glitches, and GST and the government should give one more chance to all the taxpayers. They should open up for a couple of months, okay, so that all these pending claims or issues related to that, people are now well versed with GST, so they can go and take their due claims. If at all they have not been able to do it at the stage of GST transition, so you should permit them to file that Tran 1 and all that stuff again. Okay, so they were supposed to keep it open from 1st September to 31st October 22. But as you are aware that the GST portal goes in its own speed. So there is one, circular which says that, okay, they will grant from 1st October, there will be like period of around 2 months from 1st October onwards. It won't start from 1st September because we are already on 14th September, still there is nothing. So they have issued this, okay, circular number 180, that it will be from 1st October to 30th November. Guidelines for arrest and bail, they have come up with again good kind of provisions which are like taking care of the Supreme Court judgment comments. They have said that the reasons to believe should be like unambiguous and very clear. Okay, they cannot simply invoke the prosecution provisions just like that. Okay, and the reasons to believe must be based on some credible material. So it's again a good clarification, good circular. Okay, and that guilty mind, mens rea, should be like clearly present. Then only like you should go for arrest. Otherwise, normally for any kind of tax dues, you should not go. Apart from fulfillment of the legal requirements, need to ensure proper investigation and prevent the possibility of tampering with evidence or intimidating or influencing witnesses exists. Only say, for example, if one feels that there is a possibility that these people, this person accused can go out and inspire others, or like he can tamper with the witnesses or tamper with the documents, then only like you should hold him. Then only you should arrest him. Otherwise, normally you should not. Then again, it says like if there are some demands which are very technical in nature, okay, which is like based on some interpretation of law, etc. So again, you should not rush for arrest. For summons also, they have said that there should not be repetitive summons, no summons to like high authorities, like I mean higher officers like CMD, MD, CEO, CXO, CFO, etc. It should not be like casually be used. Okay, I mean it should be like only when only not all the directors you should summon. Only the person who is actually handling the taxes, who is responsible, you should summon only to that person. So the summon also should not be used to scare people. It should be like sparingly used. Guidelines for launching prosecution, again, something similar to arrest. They have given a lot of good things. So all this, I would say, they are available. You can check on the portal. There's one more good provision which is likely to come. And that is now that SEZ is going to get replaced with DESH. So it is going to be like a development of enterprise and services hubs. DESH instead of SEZ, which will have a lower focus on foreign earnings, because SEZ was with all, I mean, impact with the export related things. It was more focused on exports. Whereas this is with like more in connection with the employment generation. Okay. So that detailed provisions would be available soon, but this DESH is going to replace the SEZ. So we'll have one more round of like study, etc., etc. We'll have to again take care of whether the DESH, in which cases we can apply and which clients this can be like more beneficial. So this is again a welcome kind of provision which is likely to come in near future. So in near future, we'll have this DESH, very important one. And this is like more to take care of like that WTO debate that you should not provide a lot of exemptions, etc., to export oriented units. So government has also shifted focus that export is no more a focus, major focus. But there is also a possibility that, okay, if employment generation is more in the local market, they should grant some exemptions. Okay, so we should like look for this kind of amendments which are going to come. Deferral exemption from custom duties, these are the benefits which are likely to happen. Exemption from excise duty, that means like some GST related benefits also are likely to come. Then some cesses, some taxes would be relaxed. So let's hope that something good is going to come. E-invoicing, earlier it started with 500 crores. Now it has come to 20 crores. So from 1st October itself, like people would be liable. So this is like one more and probably like 10 crore or more also is coming up. Then some people are like exempted, like insurance, banking, etc., goods transporters, passenger transportation services, SEZ units. So all these people have to provide some declaration. Okay. This is like some declaration which all these people, banking and all these people will have to provide in their invoice that we are not supposed to go for e-invoicing. Okay. Now, one more thing is that after the introduction of e-invoice in most of the cases, will there be like dispensation of e-way bill requirement? Because you all know that e-way bill has become a very big nuisance across the country. Across the country. Even though, say for example, if somebody has got very malified intention to evade taxes, the maximum penalty can be imposed is 100%. As against that, if somebody does not have any bad intention to evade taxes, he has all the duty paid, GST paid, invoice and everything, but he does not possess one chitta called as e-invoice, e-way bill. E-way bill is not there, then he is penalized up to 200%. And then again, confiscation of vehicle and goods and whatnot nonsense. Even to fight an appeal, in normal cases, if you are evaded with malified intentions, and if you want to fight against penalties, there is no pre-deposit for filing appeal. But if you are not a malified person, having no malified intentions, simply because you are not carrying e-way bill, if there are some penalties which you want to defend, then you have to pay 25% pre-deposit. The question is that if you are already having this e-invoice and whatnot, a lot of things, can one dispense with this idiotic e-way bill provision? If that is done, really, it would be big relief to the entire trade and commerce, and a lot of nonsense which is going on. A lot of cases will get reduced, which are like unwanted, I would say. Declaration we have talked about. Who we are knowing that who are not supposed to issue invoice, they are supposed to provide this declaration. Ocean freight, there is like one judgment which is very important, which has come up by the Supreme Court. Okay. And I would tell you briefly, if somebody is importing goods, okay, there are two ways to do. One can import on the basis of FOB. So say, for example, there is some supplier who is sitting in the overseas. So say, for example, somebody is like, this is overseas supplier. Okay. And then that overseas supplier is supplying to this Indian buyer. Okay. Now, normally it can supply as if like, okay, you take it from me and then I will charge a particular price. And then the entire this transportation, etc., is your headache. The other way is that overseas supplier, this is, say, for example, so this is supplier of goods. Supplier of goods is like engaging some shipping company and then supplying goods to Mohit Minerals at the Indian shore. Then obviously it will add the cost of insurance, freight and everything. Okay. The question is whether that would be liable to GST or not. I mean, the ocean freight portion. When he is supplying, that overseas supplier is supplying goods to the Indian port, and there is some cost which is like recovering for the ocean transportation, insurance, freight. There's notification which 10 of 2017 which says yes, this is something liable to be taxed. Okay. And if you can't make out that what would be the value, okay, there is also circular. There is some another notification which says you consider as 10% of the total CF value as your would pay taxes. Now this Mohit Mineral argued that, see, I am importer of goods. I am not concerned with the insurance or freight. Okay, that is his headache. Whether he brings on his head or he engages some shipping agency, or whether like he delivers me by a drone, whatever means, I am concerned with delivery at my airport and I am concerned with goods. So even though that goods may have as a cost, various elements of cost, but then I did not find out or bifurcate that cost into freight and insurance and various stuff, and I should pay on reverse charge. It's not applicable. Secondly, it also argued that, see, already I am the whole value on I'm paying custom duty. Custom duty includes IGST element. Custom duty includes the basic duty, IGST, and whatever different cesses, if at all they are there, it will be applicable on that. So all those things on the entire value I'm paying. Why are you asking me again to carve out that ocean freight, which I'm unable to figure out anyways? You are asking me to carve out that ocean freight, pay again IGST and a reverse charge. So on that basis, they went to the court. Gujarat High Court said, yes, it is that notification 10 of 17 needs to be read down. Even 8 of 17 also needs to be read down. So they just simply said that this notification itself is like going beyond the powers. So department went to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court said, no, that notification is correct. Okay. They said that department has got power to issue this kind of notification. On this 10%, which is talking about ad hoc value. Now, again, Supreme Court only in the case of earlier Wipro BPO, they have said that there cannot be any arbitrary kind of valuation mechanism. Now, this is something which is like very much arbitrary. So they said this arbitrary things are also permissible. Government can do that. Then secondly, the argument of that there is no import of service, import of goods is there, which includes that freight element. They said, the argument was that there is no nexus of Mohit Mindal, Indian importer, with the overseas supplier of ocean freight. So ocean freight is supplied by some foreign company to another foreign company who is supplying goods to me. I am nowhere having any privity of contract. So again, to that, Supreme Court surprisingly said, no. See, goods are coming to India. Therefore, whatever is in connection to those goods is also having nexus with India. So Indian government has got powers to levy tax on even the component of service which is there in goods. Now, this was again also a very strange observation. Then one more thing which they observed was that state governments and union government, okay, they may have difference of opinion, okay, while drafting the law, but while implementing the law, they need to be uniform, okay. So again, that was having various repercussions and a lot of details. But finally, they agreed to one argument that ultimately, though there is ocean freight element which can be carved out, there is goods element which is separately, but ultimately it's a composite supply, and therefore the principal supply is that of goods, and therefore you should not again carve out the tax element of service, and you can pay on goods and then get rid of it. So only on one argument they let go this whole case, that is on the basis of composite supply. Otherwise, for various arguments which normally a tax profession would feel that, okay, these are very quite powerful and forceful arguments based on various previous judgments, but they said no, the government can come up with ad hoc valuation. They can even bifurcate the element of service. They can tax without having jurisdiction, because that transaction happened somewhere in the foreign country of ocean transportation. They said no, once the goods are coming to India, Indian government has got the jurisdictional powers. So there were like various interesting observations. So one should go through and one should be aware of this kind of judgments also. Okay. So this entire thing I have discussed in detail, but in crux we discuss. Okay. Then there is one more Gujarat High Court judgment, which is worth discussing. That normally you all must be aware that what is the rate of GST on flats? Is it 5% or 7.5%? Now again, I think people can respond. Is it 5% or 1% or 7.5%? Any answer? Any answer? Okay. People are saying 1%. Any other answer? 7.5%. Anybody saying that 7.5%? 1 and 5. 1 and 5. 1 and 5. Okay. So people are saying it is either 1% or 5%. Friends, so there is one Mr. Rahul Daga. Rahul ji says that it is 7.5%, and there is 1/3 deduction which is available, and therefore the 2.5% goes away. And that's how you get that 5%. Actually, the rate is 7.5%. If you see The CGST notification, it will talk about 3.75. So SGST ka 3.75.
First,
Both put together, it is 7.5%. Now this, what is this 1/3 deduction available for? It is for land. Okay. The land value is considered to be 1/3, and therefore one needs to exclude. The question is, which was put up before the Gujarat High Court, that whether this 1/3 deduction, they have said in the notification, if you read, it is deemed, and anything beyond that 1/3 portion, that won't be available as a deduction. So only up to 1/3, 33% only you can claim as a deduction towards land, because land is not subject to GST. So take an example of, say, Pedder Road based project, wherein there is a per square feet rate of 1 lakh rupees. Now the construction cost may be 5,600 rupees. But the remaining portion is towards, maximum portion is towards land, because the land prices are very high in that area. In that case, if you provide only 1/3 deduction, say for example, 90,000 rupees is the land value, as against that, out of that 1 lakh rupees, one would grant as per this notification only 33,000. So what will happen to the balance portion of 66 or whatever, 60,000 rupees? 57,000. So this was the case before the Gujarat High Court. And Gujarat High Court, in the case of Munjal Bhatt, okay, they said that it is not something which is tenable. Sorry. So they come up with this answer that this notification is like arbitrary to that extent that it is only dimming. See, if you see this line, last line, deemed to be 1/3. Okay, that's the notification which is like providing the value. Okay. Now the Gujarat High Court said no, it is not going to work like that, and therefore you cannot. It was in the case of Munjal Bhatt. Okay, and they said you can put up the actual value if that can be proven that okay, it is really much more than 33%, then you can go by the actual value. Government cannot indirectly tax the land portion, which is not normally subject to GST. So that is a very good judgment. But again, if you compare, why I discuss the Mohit Mineral first, that Mohit Mineral, which is Supreme Court judgment, that says yes, ad hoc provisions, ad hoc valuation mechanism can be granted, can be provided by the government. Whereas if you see the Gujarat High Court judgment, it says the ad hoc arbitrary kind of provisions pertaining to valuation cannot survive. Now again, when this Gujarat High Court judgment, if it travels again back to Supreme Court, and then if we get some answer, probably then we'll be able to reconcile. But this is like one good different kind of view which it provides, that government cannot come up with something which indirectly tries to tax, which is normally directly cannot be taxed. So in a way, it's, I would say, more judicious judgment, more thoughtful judgment. People probably are saying that this Mohit Mineral is definitely probably may go for review. There are various judgments which are supporting this Munjal Bhatt, which are all Supreme Court judgments. Okay. Of course, Suresh Kumar Bansal is something which is Delhi High Court, which is pending before Supreme Court, but all other judgments are providing really beneficial provisions. And yeah, I'll come to this little later. I'll come to that later. GST rates in most of the cases, I'm just rushing through these slides. In most of the cases, wherever it was 0%, 5% related to either works contract, construction, which is provided to the government or governmental authorities, wherever it was 0%, 5%, they have been increased to 12%. Wherever it was 12%, they have been increased to, these rates have been increased to 18%. So at most of the places, the rates of GST, even when they are provided to the government, the GST outflow, the GST liability will go up. Okay, in most of the places, if you can see, 12% is getting increased to 18%. 12, 18, now it's 12 is becoming 18. Many places, wherever like there was affordable housing related, some provisions, some concessions to subcontractors, everywhere they have removed this 5%, which is like involving 75% or more earthwork. That 5% has become now 12. NIL has become 12. This is about hotel accommodation services. So anything up to 1,000 rupees, okay, which was previously up to 1,000 was nil. Now it has been increased to 12%. Transportation of passengers by ropeways, that is the only exception where 18% has been reduced to 5%. Otherwise, transportation of goods or passengers by ropeways, it is from 18% to 5% that has been reduced. Otherwise, most of the places it has been increased. Now, in case of GTA also, they have come up with 2 more options. Okay. Or rather, I would say 1 more option, in fact. So previously, there were 2 options. Either the recipient would pay under reverse charge. Okay. And he will pay whatever. Then you being a GTA service provider, you cannot claim any ITC. Another option was given. If you want to avail ITC, you avail ITC, but then you charge under forward charge mechanism 12%. Okay. And that person, obviously, that person recipient, based on his whatever business, he can claim the ITC. Now they have given 1 more option, that you can charge 5%. Okay. Earlier in 5%, that person was paying, recipient was paying under RCM. Now you being a service provider, GTA, you can also charge 5% and not claim ITC. If you are charging 5%, no ITC. If you are charging 12%, you can avail ITC. Okay. So this is 1 more option. Now, in the physical meeting, people are asking that who would be the fool to go for that 5%? That ultimately he will not get any ITC. If he charges 5%, he will have to pay upfront by 21st of the next month to the government. Whereas that person, recipient of his service, would pay aram say after 3 months, 4 months. So who would block his capital? Okay. Obviously, most of the people will not go. But yeah, some people who are willing to go for FCM with 12%. Okay. In some of the cases, if at all they want to go for that 5%, one can have this both options together. Okay. But one thing has to be made sure that either you go for FCM or you can go for RCM. Okay. You cannot have the combination of FCM as well as RCM. Within FCM, you can have this combination of these 2 options, 12% with ITC, 5% without ITC. So wherever you are making transactions of 5% wala, to that extent, you consider as exempt supply, proportionately reverse. Okay. But you cannot have the combination of RCM and FCM. And then you need to make a choice before the year begins. Okay. So before the financial year begins, before 15 March only, you need to communicate to the department that whether you are going for RCM or FCM. If you forget to inform, then it will be deemed to be RCM. Then it is not considered as like, okay, FCM. It is considered as deemed you have chosen to remain under RCM. And then you won't be able to come to FCM. If at all you want to go for FCM, you want to claim ITC, you need to intimate well before the year begins. That is 15th March. Now, what will happen to this current year? They have granted, okay, 16th August. Now, 16th August is already over. So if you have not gone for that, so one cannot go for FCM. One will have to continue with the RCM. They are not provided that in this year, if somebody starts business after 16th August, registration ही बाद में लिया, तो उसका क्या होगा? Okay, maybe one can provide upfront, but I don't see that there is adequate clarity on that front. If 16 August चला गया और उसके बाद कोई business start कर रहा है and he wants to go under FCM, maybe like in the communication registration he has to inform, but the this particular notification is not providing adequate option. And the one who goes for FCM will have to file a simple form where when we'll have to provide name, GST number, etc., etc. Okay. A simple form will have to be filed. And that is the intimation. And then he has to also put a declaration, okay, that which option have you chosen. If it is under forward charge, then you need to make a mention. Okay. GTS services, certain services which were like chargeable at nil rate, they have been now put under 5% or 12% basket. Again, foreman of cheat fund, which was subjected to 12%, now it is 18%. Job work services, which was pertaining to some leather products, it was earlier 5%, now 12%. Clinical establishment, some services which is up to 5,000 rupees. That is like your hospital ka room and all that stuff, which is other than ICU and ICCU. So apart from that normal hospital charges, if it is up to 5,000 rupees, then again, it is not subjected to GST. But if it is exceeding 5,000 rupees per day, then that would be subject to 5%. Okay. Now again, that is also conditional one. This is very surprising that they are increasing the rate from 0 to 5 and then making taxable, then making conditional that you should not take any input ITC for goods or services. Then only like you can go for 5%. So the question is, what if I am claiming ITC? Is it something which will be liable to 18%? It is something like, will it be at 18%? Again, probably it can fit into residual category, but then residual category does not exist in case of services. It is there in the goods case. For goods, if something is not, rate is not defined, you can put under residual category. But in case of services, there is no residual category. So if I don't fulfill that services, this condition, then again, I won't be fitting into 5%. There is no residual category of 18%. So what? Then there is no tax at all. So I can avail ITC and don't pay any tax. It's a very surprising situation, which they have probably not even thought of. Another thing is hospital rent can be segregated from the total overall medication services which one is availing or one is providing. A hospital provides not a simple room tariff that, okay, even if you don't have any disease, you simply come and stay in our hospital. Okay, we'll charge you 7,000 rupees per day. Okay. There will be, of course, some medical treatment under which a patient would be going. And there will be like much more other charges of medicines or operations or visiting doctor's fees and all that stuff. So overall, hospital room charges would be just a minuscule or a portion of that overall medical service. It is not a separate service per se. So following that Mohit Mineral case, which we just discussed, Supreme Court judgment, it is a composite supply. And then if it is a composite supply, which is the principal supply in this case, whether the room charges or the medical services? Medical services. And in that case, where is the question of paying taxes if the principal supply is medical? Again, it will be into zero only. So this is very idiotic change which they have brought, which is some biomedical waste, so treatment or disposal would attract now 12%. Services by the government, they have been like now removed from this.
I'm sorry, going this back and forth. Hi, Bhavesh.
And they have like brought it under the forward charge, and the rate also they have put as 18% at various places, particularly post-related activities. Wherever the Department of Post is providing services, it is now forward charge and 18%. When the renting of goods carriage, where the cost of fuel is also included, then the question was whether it would fit into 18% or 12%. Now it is clearly mentioned that it will be like 12% only. Services by way of renting of residential dwelling for use as residence, except where the residential dwelling is rented to a registered person. So normally renting of residential dwelling for use as residence would continue to be exempt. But if it is provided to a registered person, then that person would be liable to pay under reverse charge mechanism 18%. Now, there could be like various doubts around that. Maybe we can take up those doubts in next 5-10 minutes. Okay. We'll be like taking up that particular thing. So if you have got any doubts, you can now start putting in that. Air travel to notified regions is again 12%. Transportation by rail also 12%. Warehousing services, like many of them, financial services, all of them have been brought to 18%. So many things are now from like from lower bracket to the higher bracket. Okay. That 5% we talked about. Okay, slaughtering and blood bank services, training, right to admission services. Only thing is like FIFA Cup related things, which will be like whenever it gets scheduled, it will continue to be nil. There won't be any tax. That's what they are clarifying. Earlier, there was some deadline. So now there's no, idea that when will get held. So they have said whenever it will be held, it will remain exempt. Foreign tourist related, they have issued a clarification that, okay, if foreign tourist is traveling for some days in India, some days abroad, okay, and you are providing him a composite package. So then it's providing a logical formula that you ascertain the number of days where he is out of India and number of days where he is in India. So only for the days proportionate which are spent in India by those foreign tourists, only to that extent you are liable. But for the foreign wala portion, you did not pay GST. Okay. Rate changes for goods, we are not going to discuss except this package, pre-packaged and labeled wala thing, which many of you would be having some query. So I have tried to put it in some example. These are like all different kinds of rates, which we need not go to each and every item. You can later on see. We can share the presentation. Pre-packaged and labeled, the commodities which are like grains, pulses, etc. They are being brought to the GST net. So question is, what is meant by pre-package and label? And the expression has been defined. Means a pre-packaged commodity as defined in clauses 2L of the Legal Metrology Act. Now, what is 2L? Pre-packaged commodity means a commodity which, without the purchaser being present, is placed in a package of whatever nature, whether sealed or not, so that the product contained therein has a predetermined quantity. So there are two things. First of all, it has to be of a predetermined quantity, and it should be packed when purchaser is not present. Now, this example probably would make things clear. Okay. And Mr. Anamika is ordering grocery from a Kirana shop over call. So Miss Anamika is sitting at home and Kirana wala, okay, that person like is being placed an order over a phone call that you please send me so many goods of so much of quantity. Now, in that case, whether this would be something liable, and then Kirana shop what I will put in the packages, and then somebody would go and deliver. Okay, that Kirana shop ka person would deliver to the Anamika shop. Can one say that the purchaser was not present, and therefore when you packed, this would be like something as a pre-packaged commodity and therefore would attract GST? Another question. Mr. India has ordered an iPhone from Flipkart. Okay, so you are simply choosing that, okay, I need iPhone 14, and then like Flipkart is delivering. I mean, there would be some vendor would be using platform of Flipkart, and Flipkart would deliver. In that case, whether it can be said that it is a pre-packaged commodity. Now, of course, iPhone is not something which is like, okay, brought to the text now under the pre-packaged wala thing. Only it is grocery, but iPhone is just an example to give you the flavor. Then there is Mr. Anonymous, who went to buy 2 kgs rice from Supermart. Okay, and then the rice was kept inside. So worker went in the godown pack 2 kgs and then give it to Mr. Anonymous. Now, what do you mean by purchaser not being present? He was there in the shop, but he didn't see whether that person is packing well or whatever, whether that rice from which bag is putting. Then Mr. Charan Singh packed rice in quantities of 5 kgs each for further sale, even when there was no buyer for purchase. So Mr. Charan Singh was sitting idle in the morning. So he packed around 20 packs of 5 kgs each of rice. Okay. So that when the customers start coming, he doesn't have to waste his time. So as and when the customer comes, he can simply give that package and he can collect the money. Now, to what extent should we say that without the purchaser being present? So to make something under legal methodology liable, should that person be physically present? Or is it okay if he is viewing from camera? What could be the extent that a purchaser should be present? Now, friends, answer to that could be that purchaser should be present. Then that means purchaser should be there when I'm packing. Okay. So say for example, when I'm in the question 1, Anamika is there. She is ready to buy my goods and then she has placed order. So when I'm packing, I've got a customer in place. Okay. She need not be physically present in front of me. Okay. Even when the purchaser is present, purchaser is there, if I'm packing, then it is not something which is coming under legal methodology. Mr. India who is ordering iPhone, then obviously iPhone would always have pre-packed all those mobiles. No package would contain more than one mobile. Okay. Certainly charger adapter would not be there, only one wire. Okay. You know what is going to be the predetermined quantity. So iPhone has already packed even when there were no purchasers. So that case can be a good fit case for legal methodology, and that is considered as prepackaged and labeled. Mr. Anonymous, again, though he could not see whether from which bag that person is putting the rice from, but he was there in the shop. So that purchaser was present when the things were packed. Okay. And Charan Singh, again, when there were no purchasers at all. So it's something comparable to the question 2, iPhone wala scenario. He's simply packing and keeping ready, even though where there are no purchasers. So in such a case, again, that would be liable under the legal methodology. That would be considered to be a prepackaged commodity. So that would be the crux of the whole discussion. Now coming to one interesting thing which I would like to see you. And then we can pick up questions if at all they are there. If everything is clear, then I'm very happy. 1 second, it should come now. Before the rates had put. So this is not only GST Council, the entire GST law, the way it has been made, this video very well presents. So let's have a look what this video. So does it really depict what the GST law weight has been getting enacted, and then something which is not clear through act, they will try to clarify through rules, which is not there in the act itself. And then if the rules are not sufficient, they will come up with some circulars. If the circulars do not clarify, they will come up with some FAQs or Twitter handles or some press releases. And then the way they rejig, there are certain provisions, particular rules, they have been amended retrospectively. retrospectively from the 1st July 2017, 5 times. So there was something which was amended. No, this is not correct. So let it rectify from 1st July. Then they realized, oh, this is not correct. That is again retrospectively amend. Then they 4th time they realized, oh, this is not correct. So it keeps on happening in many provisions pertaining to like your refund related cases, return related cases, various provisions. They have time and again try to do some like cut paste activities, some kind of band-aid activities. So that's why I thought like this video is really very intelligently made, and it exactly talks about what we are facing through. So that brings us to 6:40, and we can discuss your queries if there are any. So Mukesh Desai ji is asking, if office is rented by URD to registered person, is it liable for RCM? So now, Mukesh ji, see, the person who is giving on rent, his status is irrelevant, whether he is registered or not. Irrespective of that, irrespective whether he is registered or not, what one needs to see, whether the person who is taking on rent, he is a registered person or not. So if the person who takes the premises on rent, residential premises on rent, if he is registered one, then he will be liable to pay under reverse charge. Then Kirti Jain, Kranti Jain is asking, what would be the implication of a product being classified as pre-packaged and labeled? The implication, as I mentioned, that if it is like earlier, it was exempt, the various grains, jaggery, and all those food items were normally under nil rated. Now, if they are like pre-packaged and labeled, then it would attract GST, and most of the cases 5%. If credit available to registered person on rent and so a person who has taken residential premises on rent, and if he's registered person, one needs to check whether he is using for business purposes. In most of the cases, he'll be able to argue because he'll be debiting that expenditure. Either it would have been taken for employees or directors, etc. And therefore, since it is in the course or furtherance of business, therefore, one should be eligible to claim ITC. But of course, you need to check it in case-to-case basis. Mitesh ji is asking, what is for GTA to pay GST on forward charge is yet not submitted. Okay, so if it is not yet submitted, then it seems there is no other option but to go for reverse charge mechanism. But again, one more thing is that there is another notification which is like providing that thenceforth, once you have chosen an option to go for FCM, thenceforth you will be eligible to go for FCM. So one may say that, okay, I'm ready to pay taxes at a higher rate, okay, which is more than 12% is of course more than 5%. And therefore there should not be any restrictions. So you may still try. And I would say there should not be any restriction at all. This date wala thing, prior to that, it was never applicable. Only after giving this one option that, okay, 5% wala thing, they are trying to put in that notification. But otherwise, it was not at all there. So, thank you. Rahul Dagaji is asking, what is the defense available to dealers on the taxability of secondment of employees from overseas group entities? Again, we have got that northern operating case. Yes, you have rightly mentioned. That's very, again, I would say, strange judgment, okay, which is going in a different direction. It is like unturning whatever was done so far. There are like n number of tribunal. There are like various judgments which are available, which are saying that it cannot be taxed. Okay. There are various judgments which says that rather the cost sharing arrangement between the group entities also cannot be taxed. This is like Reliance ADAG or Rural Electrification Board, and various cases are there. So if amongst the different entities, if you are sharing the cost, that cannot be taxed. What is the secondment? It is nothing but like, okay, rather you are not even incurring, you are not even like recovering the tax, the cost. Simply it is secondment of employee that, okay, instead of working for me, that person would be working for you. I don't see any, because it's a Supreme Court judgment, so I see very blink chance of arguing anything on that front. But yeah, henceforth one can like plan the affairs in a way that okay, it doesn't take the color of secondment. Maybe it's like put in a different shape. Of course, there are like legal hurdles, various hurdles, like your retirement benefits and tenure related benefits and various things are there. But yeah, still the things can be worked out at the agreement drafting level. But if something is done so far, it's very difficult to undo. And I pray that this kind of cases are not picked up by the department for retrospective demand. That Supreme Court ka judgment to aaj aaya hai. So uske pehle wale, since now this case has come up, so I'll start my 5 years ka period or 3 years ka period from henceforth. Okay, this clarity was never there for me. So therefore, now you pay even your taxes for 5 years, 10 years back ka period. Vandana ji is asking if registered person has taken commercial office in residential complex. Commercial office in residential complex from unregistered dealer, will RCM be payable? Okay, I would say RCM wala notification, the way it has been amended, this particular kind of scenario does not get picked anywhere, neither under FCM nor under RCM. If the supplier is URD, the recipient is RD, okay, and then he is using the residential premises as his commercial premises, then I would say there is nothing.
Jayesh, it is a residential complex, but I'm dedicated niche 3 shop છે, for example.
So be still,
then it is a commercial.
That particular scenario is also not captured well.
So RCM नहीं आवे ना मारा हिसाबे.
RCM तो नहीं आवे, but then there could be one possibility that this guy who is URD, if his turnover is going beyond 20 lakhs, maybe out of rental or whatever,
it is not going.
Then he'll be liable for. Okay.
Then he will be liable for commercial office.
Yes.
Right?
Then he will have to take registration.
Correct. Thank you.
Welcome. Then Mitesh Kothari is asking GST number cancelled by department and now they are not issuing new number. So what is the solution? Knock the doors of writ court. They are going beyond their powers. So maybe then Article 14 or even 19 can be invoked. Okay. It's discriminatory. And then it is like stopping me from my fundamental right to do business. Okay. So on both these articles, one should like have the proper writ petition. And nowadays, let me tell you, people get scared when we talk about writ petitions and courts and all that stuff. Let me tell you, normally, of course, it's a costly affair, but not as costly as what we like are dreaming of. Sometimes we are not even aware that, okay, certain things could not be like, okay, we think that, oh, it's going to cost us 20 lakhs or 50 lakhs or whatever, 10 lakhs. No, not necessary. At times it could be like in a very reasonable range, So if it is really troubling you, really, then I think writ court is the best solution nowadays. That's how one should go. Rashanji is asking, if threshold limit is not exceeded, yet is cable operator obliged to collect GST just because MSC companies collect GST from such cable operators? Now, not really. I would feel that just because MSC companies are collecting GST, it will be like a cost to this operator. But if he's willing to go voluntarily, then there is, I mean, of course, he can go and then avail the ITC, but he's not forced to go for registration. I hope, yeah, thank you. So we have covered all the questions also, and it's a 6:49. So we have been able to cover, I think, the major important changes, and it was really a wonderful opportunity for me to again either confuse you or clarify various your doubts and give you some glimpses of whatever recent amendments, either in the law or rules or maybe clarifications or judgments have come up. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Over to you, Purvi ji.
Thank you, Jayesh ji. I think there is one or two more queries. If you can just
Okay.
have a look at the chat.
Sorry,
Just right now,
is
2
that-
more queries popped up. Yes.
Okay. That Vaibhav, if any, is that the query? If any supplier has charged GST, but we are
Yes.
liable to RCM. Okay. So Vaibhav ji is asking if normally the supply was subjected to RCM. However, there is somebody who has already charged GST on forward charge basis. So then, having paid to that supplier, again, am I liable? Because that officer would come say, "Arey, usne lagaya, wo bhul jao." See, look at this notification. You are liable under reverse charge. Am I supposed to pay again? I would say no. And in the past also, in the service tax also, similar cases used to happen. Then in case of GTA, it was normally under reverse charge. So what used to happen that some transportation agencies, they used to charge GST under forward charge. And then departmental officers come to this guys and then they ask that, okay, you pay again because it is under reverse charge. There is very judgments, one of which I can say Navyuga law is a good judgment, wherein they have clearly said that tax is on a service, not on a person. Once a service has suffered the burden of tax, you cannot collect again. नहीं उसने दिया तो वो भूल जाओ, अभी आप अलग से मेरे को दो. So that way, a service cannot be taxed twice. Okay, so that stand can be taken very well, even in the GST regime.
Thank you, Jayesh ji.
Welcome.
I think there are no more queries now. Anybody else who wants to ask a query, now is the time.
Yeah. बाद में नहीं तो चार्ज लगेगा. तो अभी फ्री में कुछ भी पूछना है तो you are free.
I think not. Okay.
Okay, great. People are nice to me. Thank you. And thank all for your compliments. All those who have like complimented. Thank you very much. It was really.
It shows that they've all understood, I think, the session.
Thank you.
Jayesh ji, I would like to propose a formal vote of thanks on behalf of JV Nagar Study Circle. We thank you for first of all accepting our invitation again, having this session with us. The sheer length of your presentation shows how complex this law is, but your examples and flowcharts and diagrams have made it very easy for us to understand for all. And it has been a very informative and interesting session. Thank you so much for all your efforts. I would also like to thank the convener for arranging the meeting, the convener Jayesh Thakkar, and also the coordinator for today, Rahul Dagaji, for helping us out throughout the session. I would like to thank all the participants for being a good audience, for making it an interactive session, for taking part and joining here today. I thank you all. Thank you, Jayesh. Thank you. I will close the session now.
Thank you.
Thank you.